All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, as always, Steve, and back again. Once my friend is my favorite degenerate because he can't be my he doesn't like me when I think of him in derogatory. He's my favorite one. What's
I
up?
can't be, I can't be replaced. I'm just, again, like, I might be a pain in the ass, but I'm your pain in the ass, right? Like, and it's, you know, you gotta
Absolutely.
love me because I'm yours, and that's just the way it is.
You're our favorite one, brother. Absolutely. But we got a
I'm
fun
I'm
one
the
lined up
people's
for
pain
you.
in the ass.
We got a fun one lined up, guys. Little kind of let a quick last minute change. Jessica's actually gonna be joining us here in about 2 or 3 minutes. After that, we'll talk some football, talk some basketball, have a little fun. I know our Eagles fans are already kind of chomping in the bit there in the chat, so definitely want to get to them in a minute. But we are also brought to you by our doc, make him your doc, Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy LLC, Burlington, Cherry Hill, and Princeton location. Find them on the web on physicalizedtherapy.com. Yeah, that came out all weird. Look at me getting all tongue tied today. But the poll question will have to hold off until we get to our first guest of the afternoon, my good friend, Miss Jessica, the Black Widow Borga. I've been interviewing Jessica since she was an amateur, so me and Jessica go way back. She's now professional fighter here. Bellator MMA got another fight lined up here. Was it December 4th? Correct.
December 10th in
December
Connecticut.
10th. Hey, right up the way
Yeah.
from me here.
What?
Right up.
I got to find out the next time she's in Florida. Then we're talking. Now I can,
Man, I
make.
can't wait for them to come to Florida. It would be great for Bellator to come to Florida.
And they do travel around a lot, so I would imagine that at some point in time, they'll eventually get back down there again. I know that you would definitely be more than interested in being on that card, being that's your backyard, that's your stomping grounds down there.
That'd be great.
So funny story, people. The reason why this changed is Jessica forgot about us.
I'm a horrible
sister. She's also forgot about her sister in some way, shape, or form, because that's why we had a little switcheroo here. Jessica's got a. Is it engagement dinner? Is it just a regular engagement? Like, is she getting married?
Yeah, my little sister, she just got engaged, her and her fiance Nick. So I planned on taking them out because this was the only Saturday we didn't have the kids. So
Now I'm finding out it's your little sister. See, I'm the youngest brother in a family of three boys. So like now I kind of understand this as her being the younger sister. Like you become the big bad evil sister if you find a way to fuck this up.
That's
like
older too, okay? Even though they always do say the middle child is the worst, and that would be me.
But Jessica, it's been a long road for you. Obviously, like I said, me and you go back what almost 5-6 years almost at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So Bellator is kind of stealing a little bit of the shine from the UFC over the past 2 years or so. When we last talked, kind of UFC was kind of the goal, pretty much where everyone kind of had their sights set. You were always open to fight anywhere, but now obviously under the Bellator banner, they're doing a lot of fun things with bringing Chris Cyborg in and all that. You're seeing the growth besides Bellator kickboxing. We're seeing possible boxing going in. With all this growth in combat sports, and in particularly under the banner you're in, how excited are you to be a combat sports athlete? You kind of have all these different avenues to kind of dip your hands in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly happy because, before the COVID stuff, I had more opportunity to fight, and hopefully I will have more opportunity to fight now that it's getting kind of back to normal. I say kind of because it's still not 100%, but I like how much that I had the opportunity to be able to fight in Bellator. So I'm just stoked to see what the future holds.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. Obviously you see what Mr. Pitbull did the other night, putting another stamp on a run. Definitely going to be intriguing to see Emmanuel Sanchez. Guys, another guy I've talked to over the years. That should be a fun fight at 145 pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting. I love seeing people excel in the sport, and Bellator, I think, has a lot of opportunity there for people, and they treat their fighters really good. So I'm honored to be a part of their promotion.
Yeah, it's one of the rough things you see. Like, it doesn't matter what we talk about. Like, I was seeing, Heather Hardy go off on Twitter again about, the disparity between, male and female pay, still in boxing and still in MMA. It's still kind of an issue where you starting to see legally people trying to really push the Ali Act again. It's kind of a weird growth time in the sport, but also a time where we're starting to see people kind of want to push for change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really pay much attention to the male female thing and whatever. I just want to fight, so I focus on on me and just getting that next fight.
Hey man, and then you got it lined up. So the 10th hit up the way here in Connecticut. Another fun. You're looking to lay some fireworks, kind of make another statement here. Obviously you made one on your debut. You had some ups and downs there a little bit, but obviously we're gonna get a highlight reel. Is that what we're kind of looking for, or just whatever the cards throw?
I'm looking for another finish. I like to finish. I don't like to leave it up to judges. I mean, I honestly, I like going against tough opponents and challenging myself. That's why I've had up and downs, and I don't mind the up and downs because I always learn from the losses. So, I mean, I never really lose. I either win or learn. So I'm intending to dominate, though, as usual. I mean, I don't think anyone's going in there intending to do anything other than.
I mean, it's one of those things that's crazy. Like you don't expect it, but it's like one of those things. Like as a fighter, it's one of those things you also have to mentally prepare for too. There's it's just the highs and lows that comes with being the Lone Ranger out there, so to speak, because you're on the island. You know what I mean? It's just you and your toolkit that you brought with you.
It is a brutal, unforgiving sport, but I mean, to me, the champions are the ones that come out strong. They rise even higher after a loss, so they take that loss and they learn from it. If you can't learn from it and you can't take a loss, there's no way that you're going to be a champion, in my book.
How do you get in, like, as far as your background? You obviously didn't grow up saying, "Oh, I want to be a professional fighter." Like, you had some other goal, some other dream as a little kid, and then professional fighting kind of became this road you went down. How did all that come to be, as far as your background and where it all started and getting to this point?
I may have never said it out loud that I wanted to become a professional fighter, but I think me getting in trouble in school, and every school I ever went to, I fought a lot. So I think it was there. I may not know that's what I wanted to do until I started doing it. But I honestly, when I started doing it, I realized that, this is what I'm meant for. This is what I meant to do. It just comes naturally for me. And I love that I found that, because a lot of people go through life not realizing or knowing what, finding out what they're good at, what they're meant to do, and being passionate about something. And I'm lucky to have that.
And you're also lucky enough to have an alternate career. Like, you got the veterinary thing. I'm always seeing the stuff you post there on social media. I
can have two of my passions. You're right.
My other half is jealous half the time. She sees something on there like, we need the puppy. Go get the puppy.
Yeah, I got a lot on my plate on a normal basis, but I honestly, I'm kind of like I like the punishment of being consistently busy. I guess I like staying busy. It is better for me. I'm under pressure. I'm better. So I like staying busy.
Yeah, obviously the animals keep you busy. Being on that side of it keeps you busy. Being a professional athlete is also another thing.
That in itself.
Yeah, and not just that. It's not just like you're one of these smaller shows. It's just something that you do on the side. You're a high level MMA fighter. It's people don't understand the sacrifices that people, not in general, who are involved in that have to make in order. The other people in your life have to make in order for you to get to that point. And and then it makes it even more compounded thing with everything we're dealing with COVID and everything like that. If the fight's gonna fall through or not, I just I know someone that my kids train with. They had a fight lined up, and literally I think it was like within 24 hours of the fight gets yanked. Person's like absolutely crushed. You just been spending like almost 6 months preparing for a fight because you didn't know when it was going to happen. You finally get it lined up, and then boom, either someone got sick, someone got injured. It's still you're building up for this thing. It's almost when it gets canceled, it's people don't understand what mental strain that is.
It really is. It just like it crushes you, and
especially when you can't get a replacement and it's just you're off.
Right.
You don't. Not every day you have somebody like in the pocket like Paul Felder who can just say the entire event 5 days notice and just say, hey, you know what, I'll take a fight.
Yeah.
Can't you offer enough money? Can't you offer enough money to some dude in the parking lot and just be like, hey man, like here's like a certain amount of money for you to like I'll kick your ass in this amount of time and just come in and we'll have a show.
Well, luckily for some people, there are athletic commissions who are like, yeah, what's his record? No.
I know if they offered me enough money, I'd let somebody kick my ass.
Unless the guy's up in the parking lot is at least a professional with a semi-decent record is the only way you could ever pull that off.
I wish it was that easy.
Hey, just for future notice, I'll take a discounted rate of any other fighter out there, just so I can step in a ring. Get my ass kicked, make a little money.
Now, like I said, you're there at 45, and that division is starting to get pretty interesting over there, Bellator. What's kind of the goal fight that you would like to have after this? Win, lose, draw, moving forward. You just seen what was it? Britannia Hart just call out Paige Van Zandt last night in Bellator after her win. Are we gonna see Jessica look for a particular fight or just the next person up on the rankings?
Whoever I need to knock out of my way. Whoever I need to go through, honestly, I would love to, there's people I would love to fight. Working my way up, of course. Kat Zingano's now in Bellator. I would love to fight her eventually. I just whoever I need to get to go for the belt, that'll make me happy.
Kat Zingano is definitely a fun one. She's, absolutely, name the sport, one of the few people who have defeated the arguable GOAT of the 145-pound division in Amanda Nunes. So, I mean, that's definitely a name that would be a feather in the cap on the way to move towards those goals. So, like that's definitely a fun matchup, and you're one of these people where you're well versed. It's what I've been sitting there saying a lot about this newer generation that's been kind of growing up. It's not you're not seeing a whole lot of specialists anymore. You're seeing MMA fighters who are well rounded, who can strike, who can wrestle, who can get off their back, who are versed in jiu-jitsu. It's not like we're talking about this sport 5-10 years ago when we first started talking. The specialists are kind of becoming a distant thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're having to become well-rounded, or it's just not. It doesn't work in your favor usually. There's the sport's evolving so much, and people are getting more well-rounded. You have to be well-versed. And I like the element of surprise. I don't like them to know exactly what they've got to worry about. I want them to be surprised at what they have to actually worry about. So.
That's also a reason why a lot of fighters keep a lot of their stuff off of social media. I've seen it a lot. Like even when when you go into some gyms, like people even try to curtail some of the parents. Like, hey, some of the fighters in the background, can you kind of pick a different angle so we can keep that off? Like I've seen that happen. So like you've seen a lot of fighters try to keep what they put on social media be the very basic things that they do.
Honestly, I put exactly what I want them to see. I mean, I'm not going to put anything more. I'm surprised at some of the fighters that do a lot of little skits and stuff of even just their mitt work. You can see a lot of mistakes from that. So, I mean, not that, a lot of people make a lot of mistakes, but we all do. There's always something that we have to work on. We're always having to evolve. So you can always pick up little hints.
Oh yeah, there's always something like everyone has to tell when they kind of throw a punch, whether it be in your footwork, your body language, and everyone has some type of tell. I mean, I mean, anyone has. I mean, come on now. If what was that movie? Real Steel. If you can find if Hugh Jackman can find the hitch in the perfect robot, anybody can find anything that you can
Yep.
play to your advantage.
That is very true. Very true.
Hey, it's one of these things where the game has just changed a lot, but it's one of like I said, it's a fun time. You know, also, I wanted to ask you, with everything going on, obviously my brain has changed. I'm obviously not just talking MMA anymore. What's going on with your sports franchises? What's your advice going on down there? How's your teams?
Oh, we've been doing great. I mean, I don't watch honestly much other sports besides MMA, so I can't contribute much to anything else, unfortunately.
I thought you at least had some love for your home base down there.
I mean, I'd take Florida State instead of. I'm not a Gator fan, so I apologize if anyone else is. But
I'm waiting for the response of Zach over here.
I'm sorry.
No,
always a problem when I say that.
although her being a Florida State fan doesn't do much better, considering my aunt is an old school University of Miami alumni from back when Howard Schnellenberger was building a dynasty. So I'm a Miami fan through and through. So yeah, Florida State's just as bad.
Yeah. See, that doesn't even hurt my feelings because I don't even watch it that much. But if I had to pick a choice, that would be it.
I
wait for the audience, everything to get back to normal. I know there's no audience there at, Bellator in Connecticut. It's going to be on CBS Sports, I believe. And
I think that's probably the thing I've been asking a lot of the athletes is probably even because we even talk about it a lot when we talk about what the major professional teams are going through. It's just hearing a touchdown being scored or play happen, you don't hear the reaction from the crowd, at least in some ways, kind of weird. So I got to ask you, a lot of fighters kind of build that energy up front from
feed off of it.
Yeah, regardless, positive, negative, whatever, that's one of the things they kind of feel the energy of the room. So I got to ask you, is that something that you feel is going to play into anything when you go out there?
No, honestly, I'm usually the one that's a villain going into their hometown, so they're usually booing me anyway. So I'm actually
So you like playing the villain, right?
I love it. I'm okay with that. So afterwards, it's way different. The crowd still uproars whether you win or lose. So if you win, they're on your side automatically. But now she's coming to my country, so I'm actually the hometown no matter where I go. It might not be my home state, but it's my country.
So you're not playing the villain this time. I guess it ruins it for you.
No. Not my home state, but hey, USA, what's up?
Absolutely. We'll take it. Obviously we'll see if the Olympics go on, next summer. Hopefully everything plays out.
I know. That's what I mean. It's just I'm hoping everything gets back to normal eventually.
Now the rumor was this jiu-jitsu was going to be on the docket to be entered into either this games or the next games. Is that something you would ever want to contemplate in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu. So yeah, that would definitely be something to think about.
I mean, I'm hoping it does. I don't know if it was official. I know it was up on the conversation to be put onto it.
That'd be awesome.
A lot of this has changed a lot of things, so we don't know what's going on. Movie theater, movie companies kind of removing entire parts of their, basically stripping down bare right now. It's a weird time right now, but at least we still have some type of sports, and MMA was kind of the first ushering into that. We got to be thankful for that, and obviously, hopefully there's no more interruptions of anything, and everything kind of.
I hope not. This is the longest I've been out of the cage. Not that it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me in any way, but it's just, I itch to get in there, and I like to stay busy with whatever competitiveness I can get into, really, whether it be jiu-jitsu, but I really want to fight as much as possible. So hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, it's one of these things that's we hope it kind of goes on this trend where everything starts to kind of normalize a little bit, but We're not fortune tellers. We can't tell what's going to happen moving forward. Zach, anything you want to add? Because, like I said, I know Jess still has somewhere to go. Obviously, we can see she's dressed to impress tonight. She's dressed to impress tonight, guys.
I know. I look like a girl.
It's working. Good job. Anyway, the guy that your sister's marrying, you like him? You approve of him? Is all good? Like you don't have to worry about kicking his ass at any point in the future?
No, he treats her like a queen. I approve.
Okay.
So I'm really happy with the decision. That's why I'm taking him out. If I didn't approve, I would just send a doggy bag or something,
It's got to be awkward.
You could be doing the awkward Italian thing, taking him out to take him out.
No, that's true. Take him out, feed with the fishes.
It's got to be awkward being in his shoes, knowing that you can kick his ass. Like he's like, yo, damn, like I better not fuck up. She can kill me. Like she could legitimately kill me if she wanted to. Like I cannot fuck this up.
I don't know exactly what team, but he was a professional baseball player. He's like 6'5", 6'7", but he's like he's a really sweet guy. Kerchek is his last name, Nick Kerchek.
Oh, there you go.
I might have said that wrong. Don't get mad at me.
That's all right.
I'm just starting trouble. Steven will tell you this is what I do. Steven will tell you I'm just a troublemaker. I stir the pot and I push buttons and I start trouble. It's what I do best.
That's all right. I like it.
Well, Jess, you always know how I wrap it up. I kind of throw the proverbial microphone over to you. Anyone you like to thank, training partners, teammates, shoot your sponsors out, social media sites, anything, your charities you're working with, the time is yours, my friend.
Thank you. I have, of course, my boss. He works with my schedule. I wouldn't be able to do what I do on both cases with veterinary medicine and being a full-time fighter. So Doc Wyatt, North Polk Animal Hospital, I had to give you a shout out. You're amazing. And of course, my team, Warrior Combat for my strength and conditioning, and Champions MMA. All my teammates, they push me. They make me better. I appreciate it. My family for putting up with me during stressful times. And of course, my normal sponsors, Warhammer for making my clothes. I got people helping me with my banner and everything. I really appreciate everything that they do. So shout out to all the people that helped me. And that's been with me pretty much since the get-go.
There you go.
Me too, except I've never been on the banner.
Shout out to y'all. You guys have been supporting me.
As always, it's a pleasure. As always, Jess, you enjoy your afternoon, enjoy your evening. We'll catch up again. Like I said, maybe we'll hook you up with the girls and you have a late night talk with some of our new on air talents here we got over here.
Awesome, sounds good. Thank you guys so much for working with my time too.
No worries, my friend. You have a good one.
You too. Bye.
All right, everyone. That was Jessica, the Black Widow Borga. Obviously, like I said, we had to do a quick change on the fly here. Give her opportunity to get on. She made a classic fighter mistake, mixing up dates and times and whatever like that. I've done this long enough to know what goes on. But before we get going, let her go. Let's get into what we were supposed to start with and go to our poll question, which is brought to you by Ambuck Services. That's AMBUCK Services. Call Michael Ambrose. Tell him A2D sent you 20% off your gutter guards. Anything around your house, he's got you covered. AmbuckServices.com. And that poll question is, will the Eagles go 5-3 the rest of the season? Agree to disagree? Let's see what everyone's going to be saying. And I know, obviously, Zach wanted to cut me and him been talking about this throughout the week. And, it's one of the things that he kind of wanted to touch on and go over a little bit. But as he was looking at things and way things were playing out, that's the way he sees it. He sees it our Eagles are going to be 5-3. I already know what it is. This is where he was going.
You said 5-3. I said if they're anything less than 5-3, I'd be extremely disappointed.
That's how we're going with it now. I got you.
No, remember, listen, this is what this conversation comes down to. Okay, let's be honest, because we can all sit here and be pessimistic as hell like Greg Malekovich and say we're going to go 3-5 the rest of the way. If we win 3 football games, Greg, we got the Giants, the Washington football team, and the Cowboys. What are those the only 3 games we're going to win, Greg? Shut up. Go sit down somewhere and be quiet. I'm tired. See, that's what I'm talking about, Steven. That's the pessimism. We've had 8 weeks. 8 weeks of underachieving, mediocre football. We tied the stinking Bengals, for God's sakes. I'm tired of being pessimistic, and it's time to try to be a little optimistic, Steven. A little optimistic, okay? And if we're going to be optimistic, like I said, I just named you 3 wins with the Giants, the Washington football team, and the Cowboys. So now we get down to the meat and potatoes of the schedule, right? Which after the Cleveland game, which, let's be honest, I think we should win that game too. Greg's got us losing the Cleveland game. Stop it, Greg. I'm disgusted with you. He's got us losing the Baker Mayfield or something stupid like that. Oh, my God.
Wait, here you go. Here's one you're about to lose it on.
2-5. See, this is what I'm talking about. And that's not even the right amount of games. There's 8 games left, Anthony. You've got us going 2-5 and 8 games. Oh, yeah, now you change it to 2-6. See, that's why I'm tired. See, Steven, I can't do it. I can't do it. Okay, Jesus Christ, these people, we're going to win 2 games the rest of the way. I know this football team, like, I'm not saying we're a good football team, but we're damn sure the healthiest football team that we've been all year, right? We're the healthiest we've been all year. We've got all of our weapons back. You're a little bit more excited about Alshon Jeffrey being back than I am, but he's a guy that I feel confident in being able, like, he's not my go-to guy anymore. He doesn't need to be my 1. I like him as my 3. I like him as my 4. I like him right there. We're not a good team, Greg. That's fine. We don't need to be a good team to win 5 games the rest of the way. We really don't. I mean, and when I look at how we've competed against teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, I also don't think we're a terrible team. I don't think we're a bad football team. I don't think we're a good football team. I think we fall somewhere in the middle. We just play bad some weeks, and then other weeks we play, good, and there's nothing really that's ever been consistent with it so far. But I think the truth is this team falls somewhere in the middle of that bad and that good area. Now, as we get healthier, there's some things, obviously, Doug Peterson needs to get better, from a coaching perspective, offensive calling, play calling, all that. Carson needs to be better, needs to not try to play hero ball all the time, cut down on the turnovers, those things, right? We get all that. But if we're trying to sit here and be optimistic and say some of those things are going to get better here in the second half, me and you talked about it. Maybe this is me being too optimistic because, as Greg says, we're not a good football team. But I got us beating the Giants. I got us beating the Browns. I think that Seattle game in primetime, people want to write off that Seattle game like we're just going to get our ass kicked in that game. They're coming to Philadelphia in primetime, and they've had our number the past couple years. We owe them an ass kicking.
We also haven't lost. We haven't lost in primetime this season yet.
I don't expect that game to be like people think, oh, we're going to lose that game. We're going to be right there in that football game. I don't know if we're going to win, but we're definitely going to be right there. That's going to be a competitive football game. And I think depending on what we see the next couple of weeks with the Giants and the Browns, there's no reason to think that in prime time at home against Seattle, we can't win that game too. Now, if you win that game, obviously you're stealing one a little bit, but still, those are the games when you look at a schedule every year, you win games. There's that 1 or 2 games that you win that maybe you shouldn't have. We haven't had a single game this year where that's been the case. The 49ers game's the closest thing to it, and they were playing with a second-string quarterback and a third-string quarterback by the end of the game with a lot of other injuries. So I don't know, and they're not really, they've proven that, what are they this year too? They're kind of trying to figure themselves out. So I still look at a game like that, and even a game like New Orleans, those are 2 games where you have a chance to go win a game that maybe you shouldn't, but everything adds up for you. Like that New Orleans game, if we beat Seattle, I find it hard for us to go into Green Bay and beat them. I think we probably lose to Green Bay in December. But the New Orleans game's in Philly, right? If you get New Orleans out of the dome in the cold weather, Drew Brees has proven over the past couple of years that he is just not a good player in those types of conditions.
I don't know why everyone thinks that beating Arizona in Arizona is some unattainable feat either.
No, and I don't think that's unattainable either. But if I'm going to have us beating Seattle and beating New Orleans, I'm not going to also have us beating Arizona. So, But I agree with you, like same conversation there. Like those are all football games. I think, people are going to be pleasantly surprised how competitive we are in them. We're not going to win all 4 of them.
If we're going to be continually getting healthy and like
right.
I said, not only on the offensive line, hopefully Miles Sanders holds together. Like I said, me and you had a conversation that if he gets nicked up again and misses significant time again at this point in time season, we have to start might have to start having that conversation as fragile Miles. We will have that.
But here's the idea that he's not an every down back, and I need to bring somebody else in, like a different type of running back that can split carries with him, where we've had so much success.
Isn't he?
Well, I agree. He hasn't proven to be an every down back yet, but we also didn't bring anybody in to be able to split carries with him realistically. So he's in the position to have to be an every down back. I would have loved to have gone out and signed an Adrian Peterson when he first got released for cheap money and said, wow, what a great combo that is to Miles Sanders. Just give him the ball, let him hit a hole and run downhill. But we didn't do that. So
I said it last week, Mr. Dank. Love that one, by the way. It is on Carson. He has to, but also when he's getting all these other pieces back around him, getting back an Alshon Jeffrey, getting back a Miles Sanders, he's not going to be pressing as much to kind of try to make those plays. Go ahead. I know you're waiting. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, this is. I get where we're going with that, but here's where that also. Like we keep having this conversation of the quarterback and the offensive play caller, in this case, Doug Peterson, they're tied at the hip. One's not going to have success without the other. So, yeah, we need to see Carson get better, but we also need to see Doug get better at the same things we've been complaining about with that. If one gets better and the other doesn't, we're still going to see the same results. Doug could get much better as a play caller, and if Carson continues to make bad decisions and throw balls in the triple coverage, you're still going to have issues. If Carson seems to be turning a corner and taking a step because he's got all these guys around him finally, and Doug still seems to be putting the team in bad positions, going for it on 4th and 3 and, your own territory and shit like that, where you're just like, what, we're just overthinking this. There's just way too much on Doug's plate here. He seems overwhelmed. He continues to make poor decisions and things that make you scratch your head. It's not just the play calling anymore. It's things like that with Doug, right? Like those are all things I need to see him get better at. So unless Doug's getting better there and the offensive coaching staff in general, we're talking about all these guys coming back. Well, that's great that they're coming back unless we find a way to actually work them into the offensive game plan and find a way like, hey, they're not just a guy out in the field. We actually have plans for what they're going to be in this offense. Those are all things that matter in order for Carson to be able to get back to the guy that we want him to be. It's great that Alshon's back, but if they're just like, yeah, Alshon, just go out there and, I don't know, try to get open, and like there's no really plan for what he's going to be in this offense, like there's got to be something. Like you got to be able to try to find a way as an offense to scheme the idea. Oh, you've got Fulgham, Rager, and Alshon Jeffrey probably as your top 3 wide receiver options, right? And then you've got Goddard and you've got Goddard right there as your tight end right now. So find a way offensively. Those are guys there with all different skill sets. Find a way to scheme something up where you've got a lot of different looks and a lot of different ways to get guys the football. And, it really shouldn't be an issue. When you think of the idea, Fulgham's a great possession guy. You said you think it reminds you a lot of more like Alshon Jeffrey when he was with the Bears, early in his career when he was a Pro Bowl player, a really, really good player, a legit 2 behind Brandon Marshall, if not like a guy that was a borderline number 1 receiver in this league from a play perspective, his play style, his physicality, all that. I think it's a good comparison. So if you've got that, you've got, Fulgham, you've got Jeffrey. Well, now Rager's a guy with all the versatility in the world to be able to line up all over the field, right? And I know you love the idea of lining him up everywhere, the slot, outside, the backfield, wherever it is that you can get him the football. You want to line him up and scheme him into the offense as many ways as possible. I haven't seen that creativity yet. I would love to think that Alshon Jeffrey coming back gives me that creativity, but does Alshon Jeffrey returning to this offense really, like, he's that good of a player and gives me that much of a difference-making, a guy in this offense where all of a sudden Doug Peterson comes up with some type of scheme, that we haven't seen all year long and starts lining up Jalen Reagor in positions we haven't seen yet? That seems like wishful thinking. That seems like more than being optimistic. It's more like wishful thinking. Is it wrong to say the brains of this team's greatest success is in Indy? No, and it's not. And I think it's more than just what we see going on here. When a guy like Nick Foles comes out and says, hey, the guy that really figured me out as a player was Frank Reich. Hey, maybe this whole idea that Frank Reich and we missed Frank Reich in this offense isn't so far-fetched after all. Maybe it's not, I think one thing that he brought to this offense that we don't have right now from an offensive coaching perspective is Frank Reich seemed to have the trust of Doug Peterson enough where Doug Peterson could lean on him, Doug Peterson could turn to him, and they could almost, it was like almost like they were tag teaming on different, aspects of this offense. They trusted each other that much. I don't think Doug has any trust of anything close to that in any offensive coach on this staff right now. So that's where you're seeing a big difference between what we had when Frank Reich was here and what we've had since. It's and that's a big thing. We talk about Andy Reid and all these great coaches, and what's the one thing that every great head coach, the common denominator with all of them throughout their career, they always have great assistants around them, right? People they can lean on and trust. I don't know if Doug really has that. Now, that might be more Doug's problem and Doug's fault than it is anybody else's, because he's the guy that wants to have control and he wants to be the guy that's getting all the credit for the offense and all that. But
I mean, that's one of the
at some
things,
point,
I think what he's alluding to here, like me and you were talking about it, like why is it when the injury came to Carson and Nick came in, and then he had that stinker, and people tend to forget about that.
The Raiders game, he was awful.
Nick lost more games for the Eagles that season and the following season than Carson did. So
he had more turnovers than he did touchdowns in 2018. The following year, when he played more games, he had more turnovers than touchdowns, and everybody acts like he was magical that year too.
But it's one of these things where why haven't we made those same type of adjustments to what Carson does? It's one of these things that it goes back to. Doug is not committing to the run to the point where Carson can do what Carson does best. He hurts people badly when the run is working, and he can hit you with that play action over the top with those big plays to Alshon, to Torrey Smith and them guys like he did in 17. You could do the same thing with these guys that you have on this team right now with Jalen Reagor, with Travis Fulgham, Alshon Jeffrey's back. You could still rotate in there with Ward and Hightower too as well. Go ahead.
I like this 3-man receiving core probably a little bit better than I like the 2017 one. I think this is better than Alshon, Aguilar, and Torrey Smith.
Yeah, I agree.
Just from what I've I think Rager's more explosive than any of those guys.
We're better at the tight end of the position as well, but the question is, we're probably weaker at the running back position, because as great as Miles is, we still had that versatility between Jay Ajayi, Clement, and Blunt. Where you had that nice mix, and each of them were kind of that they were a Swiss Army knife.
It was a 3-headed monster that year almost. It was more than just two. You had 3 guys that were making plays.
They were 3 guys that was a perfect running game.
It reminded you of that 03 team. When you had Westbrook, you had Staley, you had Buckhalter. And they were kind of the main focal point of that whole offense. We didn't really have any outside receivers. We had another 3-headed monster in our backfield that year. I don't know if we necessarily need that, but I think
you just need some type of balance and
we all knew that
production. The production also has to be there too.
You know what's funny is how we knew that. We had been clamoring. We would have been cool with J.K. Dobbins being the 2nd-round pick instead of Jalen Hurts, just because they had another really good young running back. And you're like, hey, there's just good. You can't complain about the idea of both of those guys in this offense. The hell with it. Like, we would have been cool with that. We've been clamoring for it since the offseason, going back to the draft any way we could. We felt like we needed to bring in a legitimate second running back option, and it never happened. And now we're kind of seeing the results of that. But at the very least, Boston Scott showed glimpses, especially against the Giants, during Miles Sanders' absence. Why not? Why can't we see more 2 running back sets? Why not see more shotgun with both of those guys in the game at the same time? One off of each side of Carson's hip. If not for anything else, just because, you're talking about just another weapon on the field that makes it hard for the defense to, be able to have,
Well, I also think that had to do with just the injuries up front too, if you really think about it. But now, you got Peters back. You're getting, say, Malu back here at some point in time as well. Like I said, we're the bye week helped in the sense of we're able to kind of get healthy in some of these positions where I think it should kind of bring Carson in where he doesn't have to try to be Superman and try to make every play and try to do too much. And like I said, hopefully he gets put into these play calls in these situations where it plays to his strengths. I know you're waiting to comment. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I'm looking at Anthony's comment.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, a lot of that's nonsense. I love you, Anthony. We appreciate your support. You watch every week and you always comment, and I love that. But yeah, He's not playing with fourth and fifth stringers this week. I mean, like that, I don't think that's been the issue with Carson over the past few weeks. I really don't. I think he's been getting very comfortable with guys like Fulgham being in the offense and all that. Like, I don't think it's necessarily an issue of that kind. You might be onto something with Doug. He kind of looks like the president at the end of every presidential term, like after when you do a beginning and end shot of the president from like their first, when they first take office to like the end of their second term and how gray and wrinkled they've become. Doug Peterson does kind of remind me of that guy. Like he has aged a lot in the past few years. He does look like a dude that is stressed the hell out. His hair has gotten grayer, more wrinkly and shit. Like, just a little bit I could see that. But I don't, that's just us trying to have some fun with the situation and speculate. We don't really know what's going on with that, behind closed doors. He could just, it's a stressful job to be an NFL head coach, and it's taking its toll on him just like it does any head coach. Scott and Miles, I like the idea of both of them being in the backfield together. I also like the idea, why can't, we see Kansas City line Tyreek Hill up in the backfield. I mean, Doug, like it's not that, Peterson obviously studies a lot of the things that Andy does. Why can't we have some looks where Jalen's lined up in the backfield, even if he comes from out of the backfield and splits out as to a receiver, but something, give the defense a look where you're like, oh shit, Jalen Reagor's in the backfield. What are they going to do here? It's just something. It's a different look that a defense has to be ready for, and you're almost wasting the guy's versatility and playmaking ability by not trying to take advantage of shit like that. Like you just are. But knowing Doug, he would line him up in the backfield and call a simple swing screen pass, like to the outside, and just be like, line him up as a running back and let's call a simple swing pass. Like people weren't going to be all over that one. It'll probably gain like -2 yards, and we'll just shake our heads.
Bobby's getting right to your point right here.
He thinks it's a little predictable with the 11 and 12 personnel. Yeah, it needs more wrinkles. That's a great way to put it, Bobby. Yeah, the playbook needs more wrinkles. I don't think the base setup and the idea of what we do is bad, but it just needs more wrinkles. More. That's what we talked about. We've always used the word vanilla, right? Doug's offense is very vanilla. Outside of that 2017 year when like it seemed like we got really creative and there was a lot of different wrinkles, as Bobby puts it, in that playbook, it's just been very vanilla. Not just predictable, but vanilla. Like, not only can I predict what play's coming, but it's the most boring play call ever.
But also with the injuries and lack of production from your outside, from your playmakers, kind of plays a fact into that too. Can't be can't be a complete crutch, but also you put yourself in that position.
What I don't like about that argument, though, and we talk about this all the time. What I hate about that argument is, even if a guy sucks, that doesn't mean you're just like, all right, well, they suck, so we're going to coach them like they suck. No, like you got to try to scheme these guys up and get them into a point where, like, the 49ers right now find guys all over the field. One running back gets injured, they find another guy, he comes into the offense, he starts playing. Same thing with the receivers. They had a kid that I never even heard of that stepped in the game when they lost 34-17 to the Packers, where they had like 12 guys out because of COVID. I don't even think he's back on the practice squad now, and the kid had like 10 catches that game. Like this idea that like you can't just scheme, and your system can't help, get some of these guys that are less talented and aren't these big playmakers. Like that's fine that JJ Arcega-Whiteside's not a superstar, but it's absolutely ridiculous that the guy isn't somehow more productive than he is. Like this guy, like he's got one catch all year. Like that's ridiculous and asinine. I don't think the guy's a superstar. I don't think the guy's a good player. But I guarantee you, Mac Hollins just caught a touchdown pass the other day. So don't give me this idea that we can't do a better job as an offensive coaching staff of actually finding a way to get these scrubs more involved and at least somewhat productive, because we've seen it in other offenses. Mac Hollins just caught a touchdown. I feel like Arcega-Whiteside would be productive. We see Aguilar's found his footing again with the Raiders a little bit. Those things to me matter.
Yeah,
Bryce, we've been talking about that all year. It's his play calling is it's more than Doug's play calling at this point. Doug has been killing us with a lot of his shit as head coach. A lot of the things he's responsible for, he hasn't been good with. But the bye week's an amazing thing, right? Like that's why I said if one thing we can do with 2020 and all that, can we leave all that pessimism in the bye week, please? Like if anything, let's I get it. All these things we've been saying are true. But if there's one thing we can take out of this, with the bye week and how healthy we are and all that, hey, you know what? One thing I read today that got me really excited.
What's up?
I got really excited about that. We were practicing a no huddle offense in practice all day yesterday. all day, apparently for like the entire practice or the majority of the practice, whatever it was, we were like, that majority of the practice was focused on running a no huddle offense. Ooh, up tempo, no huddle offense. Me likey, Steven. I mean, let's do it all fucking game long. Like, I mean, that's when an offense seems to be most productive, when you get Carson into a point where he doesn't have to think and just plays football.
That works best with, like I said, this is why I say I'm excited for Alshon the back, because it makes Doug and Carson be able to do things that they haven't been able to do in almost 2 years. We have the personnel between Fulgham, Reagor, and just to think, like, I know a lot of people don't think he's going to amount to much. When we get Deshaun Jackson back, I think there's some of your little trick plays that I know you don't want to hear it. I know you don't want to hear it.
No, because you know why? No, because at this point, Djax, he would break a rib after he's sneezing. Like, he would sneeze and break a rib. Like, all those trick plays, cool. Run them with Reagor. Like, at this point, Rager's more explosive. He's more versatile. He's more dynamic. He's everything.
JJ, I wouldn't put him anywhere but on the corner to pack his bags at this point in time. All due respect.
I mean, listen, whatever happened with JJ Ortega-Whiteside, and I know I'm going to, this is what's going to happen. He's going to end up finding his way into some other organization and end up being a pretty decent pro. I don't think he's going to be anything special, but he'll be a pretty, like in 5 years, JJ Ortega-Whiteside will still be on a roster somewhere and still be catching passes, and we'll be like, wow, JJ Ortega-Whiteside's still in the league? Holy shit. Like, how's that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
But he just needs a change of scenery type of thing. Like that relationship here is broken and over. Like, it's just over. He's not seeing his way back in this rotation now. And another guy we haven't talked about is Greg Ward, who's still going to see, obviously plenty of snaps for this offense. But can you imagine the four of them on the field at once? We do a lot of that too. No, no running back, looks, empty backfield looks and stuff like that. You've got Fulgham, Reagor, Jeffrey, Greg Ward, and maybe Dallas Goedert, all five of them out there as a wide receiver, and like good luck covering all five of them. If you can't find a way to scheme something with those five guys as your wide receivers in a play, I mean, like, come on, man. Like that, like, I don't like, to me, like, yeah, I would get it if we were scheming guys. You're like, oh, that guy's open, and Carson just overthrew him by a couple yards and it's picked off. But that's not what we're seeing. Even the interceptions that Carson's throwing, like, he's the one before the bye week in the end zone. That was a great play by the defensive back. That was forced down the field. He didn't need to force that one. But a lot of them have been balls he's thrown into tight windows. They've got tipped at the line,
me and you can agree to disagree on that one. I thought Hightower quit on the end of that route, and the one.
No, the Hightower one I agree with. The Hightower one I agree with.
The one the Reagor was horrendous. I give you that.
Yeah. The one the Reagor, I just thought it was forced a little bit. He didn't need that. Like, I get why he tried to make the throw, but throw it short if you're going to do it. Like, it was just, that was erratic and didn't need to happen. The Hightower one I agree with. I saw the same thing you saw. I thought it was a guy that gave up on the play, not thinking the ball was going to come to him, and then it did, and he wasn't ever in a position to really be able to do anything about it. And that's football sometimes. But, like, our point being, I think we kind of see it the same way. Like, it's not like we're looking at like plays on the field and being like, wow, that was a play that was there. It was, that would have been a big play, and Carson just makes a bad throw and it's intercepted. Like, we're seeing a lot of tight window throws that are, oh, maybe Carson, makes a throw that's here instead of here, and that's the difference between it being completed and it's being intercepted this year, as opposed to just being incomplete. Those things, though, when you look at Carson's career, I know people want to make fun of all the turnovers this year. When you look at his career, right, the interceptions, the TD and interception ratio has been one of the best we've seen in football going into this year, at least, So I don't think it's crazy to think that interception number evens itself out here in the second half. Like, he's not going to throw 12 more interceptions in the second half. I really don't think that's going to happen. If anything, I think it's more likely he goes on a run and he ends up like throwing, like 18 touchdowns and, 4 interceptions or something like that. And you're like, hey, like, he had a pretty good second half, and really put us in a lot of positions.
You're starting to see him get healthy up front. You're starting to see him get some of his weapons back. I know it's going to be rough, but also, at the with some of that scheduling where we have to go through, that rough games with Seattle and New Orleans and Arizona.
Green Bay, Arizona. But, I think it's a good thing. You guys can think that's a bad thing all you want. I actually think that's a good thing for this football team. Because regardless, we could lose all 4 of those games and still win the division, right? So the worst that comes out of it, or I guess what we're looking at is there is no worst thing. We already know that we're going to probably be a playoff team anyway, and if we lose those games, then
with a home,
right, with a whole playoff game, and if we lose those games, there's a lot of people that already thought we were a bad football team, so we're just confirming that we are. But if we go and win a couple of those football games that nobody thought we were going to win, if we beat Seattle, beat New Orleans, beat Arizona or something like that, Leo, as you talked about, right? You go and win a couple of those football games. Say you come out of that 4-game stretch 2-2. All of a sudden, you've learned a little something about yourself as a football team. You've learned that, hey, we can go beat a playoff caliber football team. We're not as bad as everybody thinks we are. And there's reason to have a little bit of confidence and a little bit of swagger going forward. Like, for me, it's like, you couldn't ask for a better situation. We're going to go into a stretch of football games that in most years you'd be like, this is going to make us or break us. And instead, we're just going to learn, a little bit more about ourselves as a team. It doesn't even really have a long-term effect on whether we're a playoff team or not. Say in 4 weeks from now, 5-6 weeks from now, say after say what I think, what I predicted, we're going to beat the Giants, the Browns, and the Seahawks. Say that happens. What conversation are we having the following Saturday, coming off a big win against Seattle in prime time, where all of a sudden we're now 6-4. We're 6-4-1 as a football team, right? That's where we would be, and all of a sudden we're like, hey, like we don't look so bad. Like, and people that said we were this bad football team, we're not as bad as everybody seemed to think we were. Keep this up, and maybe we have a little something. And we love. That's what makes us Philly fans. We love playing that underdog card, the Rocky thing. Just let us believe we have a chance. Make me think I have a chance, right? Just give us any little glimmer of hope to make us think we have a chance, and we'll start believing and coming up with reasons for why, things don't have to be as bad as they always have been, with sports in this city. I don't know. It's so what the worst case scenario maybe is we get embarrassed in those games, which maybe ends up turning into a good thing, because if you get embarrassed that bad, maybe the conversation finally happens about, do you fire Doug Peterson? Do you start firing guys? Maybe that's the worst thing that comes out of this, but even that could end up being a good thing. Like, I really don't see any legitimately bad thing that can come out of this stretch of football games.
Like I said, I just say you have to still one of those two road ones, like I said, between Green Bay
absolutely.
and Arizona. Like I said, it has to be one of those road ones. We already.
Oh, you think you have to win one of those two?
Yeah.
Okay, so in your scenario, because you have us losing to Seattle, right?
Even though I already said that they've been undefeated on primetime, it's one of those things where
no, you think they're going to play well. It'll be a really competitive game, but Seattle might win by a field goal, something like that. Which I could see that too. You know what I mean? But still, I think like you're not necessarily like, if you lose to Seattle by a field goal in primetime when Seattle's a Super Bowl contender, you're not like, oh man, we suck. You're like, oh, we just played really well and we're right there with another really good football team. Like, I think we're tired of having that conversation. Oh, look how good we played and look how competitive we were, and we were right there at the end of a football game with another good team. But that's kind of the conversation you've got to have when those guys have DK Metcalf, and Russell Wilson as their best player, and it's nothing close to what we have. Of course, those are the conversations you're going to have. It becomes a win, and like you said, you kind of steal a game if you go and you beat a team that has Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett as their three best players on offense. You got to feel, hey, like, that's a really good win there. It doesn't matter how you spin it. Like, that's a phenomenal win. And even, you play that team tough, no matter, how it happens, you play them tough. We don't sit here and knock any other team because they lost to Seattle by a field goal and they played them tough. You're like, hey, they showed they were a good football team. They sat there and they played them tough. So I don't like that either. I don't know. See, that's a good point, because that's something that we didn't. Hightower's a name we left out earlier. I don't like the idea of Alshon taking snaps away from Hightower. Like, what good does that do long term? What good does that do? I really don't like that. If we're being honest, Steven. Like, because they don't have the same skill set either. Like, Hightower can stretch the field. Like, like for me, like, Alshon shouldn't be like, oh, like, Alshon should be a guy that we're rotating in whenever, when somebody else needs a breather. I don't necessarily know if I want him starting on the outside, taking snaps away from any of these guys right away. I don't know. Like, that's a good point now, because I'm kind of like, as much as, the one thing I've liked about Hightower, he's made some mistakes. He's done some things where we've knocked him and been like, what the hell is this kid doing? But he has not let that, like, we've seen guys in this city let that just absolutely destroy them, mentally and from a confidence perspective. And this kid keeps fighting. He's scrappy. He's definitely got that, I'm not going to quit type of attitude, which we obviously love in this city. And, it's something that, at least for me, I don't need to take snaps away from that kid when Alshon's not going to be here probably in the next couple of years. And obviously the plan is for that kid to be here. So I don't know. But just the idea of being able to have all those guys in the same conversation. We've got that's 5 or 6 names that we can say can all be in the same conversation of throw them all in there. Find a way to get them all in the game plan and get them all the football. The more the merrier. It can't hurt to try to get them all as much playing time as possible.
That's also what made that 17 team tough, is because like you would take one thing away and the other piece would hurt you. So it's like one of these things where I think you finally find the right mix. Like you said, I like this group better than 17.
I do. Yeah. I think this group's younger and a little bit more dynamic and explosive.
Someone already said it. Hopefully, Alshon is finally healthy, and
I think I'd be less worried about that and just more worried about whether Alshon is fucking shot. I mean, he could be Barbaro after he broke his leg. I'd be more worried about that than whether or not he's fully healthy. And that's not like me trying to knock Alshon. That just wide receivers get to a point in their career where they get over the hill. And once they get over the hill, it goes downhill real quick for receivers. You know what I mean? Like, they can stick around at the top of that hill for a while, but once they actually get over the hill, like those guys always think, oh, I can still play. And then they find out real quick. No, like once you can't play anymore as a receiver, you just can't play. And I think I'd be like, that would be my concern a little bit more with Alshon, is he's just shot. Those 50-50 balls and the contested catches and things like that we count on him for is just not something that, he's consistently good at anymore. And if he doesn't have that, I've heard the Fulgham, that Fulgham's really taken a liking to him and he's trying to mentor Fulgham a little bit. Okay, you know what? If there's one thing he can make that money in that contract worth it for, is if he can become a guy that mentors younger players. It's like, hey, like this Fulgham kid's become a better player because he's had, Alshon to kind of lean on. That's one thing I'll take out of it, maybe. Like, okay, if he's shadowing Alshon in that way, it makes it worth it. But I'm not like, I know you're excited about, I guess I'm excited about it in the sense that I have an extra wide receiver, a guy that is at least a consistent, player to put out there and say, okay, with everything else we have, I now got 6 receivers instead of 5, something like that. And it's just, the more the merrier, right? Like if what you could do with 5 receivers, you can obviously do more with 6 than you could with 5. So it's just another guy to be able to work into the offense. But I'm not, I think I would be lying to you if I said I had any type of expectations for Alshon. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he was back on the bench in 3 weeks because he stinks that much where they're just like, hey, this guy doesn't have it anymore and he's lost his spot. And I also wouldn't be shocked if he's, got 10 catches for 150 yards and a couple touchdowns in a few weeks in a primetime game against Seattle. Like that wouldn't shock me either, I think either one of those scenarios could happen. But I think it's more likely when I talk about if we're going to, we've been beating around the bush with the poll question. I guess I'll be the guy. I'll do this because I want to be optimistic, and I'll be the guy that's going to allow people to. I'll set myself up to be a guy that people can take shots at if it ends up blowing up in my face. But I have us going 6-2 the rest of the way. And going 6-2 the rest of the way, all of a sudden you're like, hey, that's you go 6-2 with this schedule the rest of the way. Why can't we win a playoff game? And people could take their shots all they want. It's getting to the Christmas time, that holiday time of the year. We got Thanksgiving coming up in a couple weeks, Christmas shortly after it. I'm tired of all the negative energy. Negadelphia needs to go. It needs to go. Just go and stay away. I'm being positive the rest of the way. I like, everybody coming back and getting healthy in this offense. And, I can, what I really want to see is a guy like Rager take the next step and maybe like, one of these big games we talk about, the Seattle, the New Orleans, the Arizona game, he becomes a guy that has that breakout game and solidifies himself as, wow, this guy can be a big-time playmaker in our offense. Yeah, that's what I would like to see. I guess best case scenario outside of just being 6-2 is a guy like Rager establishes himself down the stretch, is the guy we all hoped he could be.
So you're having us kind of like completely turning the whole page around during this next season, next half of the season.
And this, it might be a good segue for it, because we wanted to kind of talk about a little bit of like all the the internal conversations about the team. Another report came out today. We had some type of NFL executive that talked about how he thinks Carson Wentz has been atrocious and how Doug Peterson's been awful and how there's no accountability from anybody in the coaching staff and the front office in that Eagles organization. Brian Westbrook came out today and said that, he heard this thing about, Carson wouldn't listen to the older veteran players when he first got there. And now he's worried that might be, turning into Carson not listening to the coaches. And you know me, I don't think any of these reports are 100% true, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire. That's kind of where I'm at with these things. But if all of those things that are being reported are at least somewhat true and there is some smoke to all of it, I think, for example, the Brett Favre thing that we want to talk about, right? That was the first time I think all year I've seen Doug Peterson get to a point in a press conference where he really looked irritated. He looked irritated at the question, don't put words in my mouth. That's what he said. Don't put words in my mouth or I will get mad. That was pretty much what he told the reporter, put words in my mouth and I'm going to get upset. And I actually like that. Yeah. Get pissed off. Be angry. Be pissed off that everybody's talking bad about you guys and they think you suck as a head coach now, Doug, and they just called Carson Wentz atrocious, and let all of that shit be fuel to go out and kick people's ass in the second half and be like, whoa. We're the same, Doug Peterson's I'm the same head coach that won a Super Bowl in 2017. Carson Wentz, I'm the same player that was going to win MVP that year. If anything could get those guys to kind of light a fire under them a little bit, to kind of get them to elevate all of it and get them back to the point where they're like, you know what, let's get our heads out of our ass and actually, get back to performing at a level we know how to. It's shit like that. I actually like that, those things like that. I don't know. Maybe that's the Philly in us and we're a little bit weird, but those things don't necessarily make me mad in a bad way. They make me mad in a good way,
Yeah, I mean, it's something this team kind of misses that little edge, that little fire there. So
see, and Dank Burrito talks about it. He says, I actually agree with that. I think Carson isn't being coached hard enough. Now, listen, if that's the case, that's the case. But that's not a Carson Wentz problem. That's a coaching staff problem, right? And one thing in Philadelphia that's going to get any Philadelphia sports fan riled up right now is the word accountability after everything that went on with the Sixers and Brett Brown, over the past few years, right? So the word accountability means a lot to Philadelphia sports fans right now. And if there is, some substance to that report about, him not being coached hard enough since Frank Reich left and things like that, well, okay, then, fucking well. Somebody on that coaching staff needs to suck it up and just have the tough conversation and say, hey, here's the deal. And I think that goes both ways, because I'd like to say, okay, maybe players aren't being held accountable the way they should be. But is this coaching staff being held accountable the way they should be by higher ups? Is Jeffrey Lurie calling, Jim Schwartz and Doug Peterson and people like that into his office when he feels like it's necessary and getting on their ass and lighting a fire under them to make them think hey, maybe they need to pick their performance up too? Because that's a conversation that goes both ways. Yeah, I need my players to be held accountable by coaches, but I need my coaches to be held accountable by not only the players, but also the front office and ownership and things like that. So that's a conversation that there's a lot of things involved with that outside of just the players and whether or not they're being coached hard enough. There's a lot that goes into that. I'm so tired of, okay, listen, Dank, and you know what, Dank? I'm going to say this about it. I'm not just going to come out and say you're wrong. I'm not going to say you're right, but I'm also not going to say you're wrong, because I agree. I do think there is something to that. I think Doug, since Reich has left, there has been a little bit of a fear of him hiring anybody that can maybe pose a threat to, how much of an offensive genius Doug is. And people could say, I'm a conspiracy theorist all I want with that. Great head coaches have great assistants around them. Press Taylor's not a good assistant. Marty Morningweg, good Lord. That guy hasn't been a good assistant since the last time he was with Andy Reid, and he's like a senior offensive consultant on this team. Great head coaches surround themselves with great assistants. We don't really have that. So I don't know. I can't sit here and argue with the idea that maybe there is something to the fact that for whatever reason, maybe we should just leave my reasoning out of it. I don't know the reason.
I don't think Alshon's
Doug Peterson needs to hire a better offensive, coaching staff, somebody that has more rapport, more of a reputation and respect around the league, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, Kobe. I don't think Alshon's going off this week. If anything, it'll be Fulgham.
This Kobe guy's had some. Yeah, he's He's had some crazy predictions since coming. He's been coming out guns a-blazing in the show. Everything he said has been a fire take. At least we're not the Cowgirls. No, are you a Dean? Okay, hold on now. Hold on now. First of all, I don't trust people without profile pictures. That's one. And two, I feel like I can sniff out these cowboy cockroach fans from a mile away. Okay, Dean, don't make me push the bullshit button. Are you a closet Cowboys fan that's listening to A2D programming? Because we have a lot of them. There's a lot of Cowboys fans that listen to A2D content. Don't make me call you out as one of them. That's a weird comment. At least we're not the Cowgirls. And at least I don't have a vagina. Like, I don't even know. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, I don't like that. That's like the old, like, what if, like, if my uncle had tits, she'd be my aunt. Like, I don't even know what the hell that's like. What are we getting at? Like, at least we're not the Cowgirls. I actually do like Kafka as an offensive coordinator. I do, but I don't think Doug Peterson would ever bring him in because he's a guy that can steal his thunder. I think that's the
Chrome's not on the air to give us one of his
famous. Yeah, Chrome's in Orlando. Hey, Chrome, like, I'm in Lakeland, bro. How long you in Orlando? We've got to meet up before you head back. We'll get lunch or something, buddy. You got to be. Like, it's just ATD, me and Chrome have never met in person, and it would be like a perfect time for all that to happen down here, the A2D family to get together.
I was supposed to meet Chrome when we were doing the stuff with Dan on the boardwalk, but he overslept somewhere on here. I don't know what happened.
Sure, that's what happened.
I think he drank too much that night. I don't know what happened.
Probably. Stephen, I think the word I was trying to use, I think I finally found the saying I was trying to go with. Doug, I think, might be a little bit afraid, or let's just say, since Frank Reich left, he has not hired an offensive assistant that in any way, shape, or form could steal his thunder. And that's a little weird to me. Like, is he afraid to hire an offensive coach that might steal his thunder a little bit and take attention away from him if the offense started performing at a high level? I don't know if that's the case or not, but I can tell you that at this very moment, if the offense performs at a high level, it's going to be Doug Peterson getting credit and Carson Wentz and the rest of the offense. There's not going to be another offensive coach on this staff that's getting credit for how well the offense performs. And that's a little bit weird to me. Like, even Kansas City with Andy Reid, like right now he's got, he's got Eric Bieniemy out there who's getting a ton of credit for those things that go on in the Kansas City offense. Like, that shouldn't be a problem for a head coach to, like, be scared for a coordinator or an assistant to steal their thunder a little bit and get some of the attention. But Doug seems opposed to that, at least on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't want to speculate into it any more than that.
You got a wish list there for you.
I hate Lincoln Riley. He stinks. Lincoln Riley stinks. God awful stinks. The dude's overwhelmed as a college football head coach, and you think he's going to step in and be an offensive coordinator at the NFL level? Like, well, why? First of all, why would he leave Oklahoma to come to the Eagles and be Doug Peterson's puppet? Why? Like, who's doing that? Like, and that's the other problem with this conversation is this is all kind of a moot point. It's all kind of stupid because until Doug's willing to acknowledge and accept the fact that, did you just see what happened with the Bears in Chicago? Did you see that? That Nagy gave up play calling duties in Chicago and gave it over to the offensive coordinator? Like, why? Like, and that's a team that's winning football games right now, but the guy decided to not have an ego and hand over play calling duties because he thinks it would be better for the team at the moment. I don't understand why, like, Doug can't look himself in the mirror and just have that conversation and say, okay, even if it doesn't work, why can't I let Deuce Staley call plays for a couple weeks? Why can't we allow somebody else to call plays here and see how things work out? Like, what's he afraid of?
Banker disagreeing now. Here you go.
Riley's a genius. Yeah, here we go. Riley's a genius. Anywho. So, but okay, so Lincoln Riley's a genius. So if he was such a genius, why would he leave Oklahoma to come to a place in Philadelphia where he can't even call plays? Why would he do it? Not because Jalen Hurts is here. That's a silly reason. If anything, he would wait until somebody was ready to hire him as a head coach and just say, fuck it, I'll go do that and take that job. Like, he's not going to come to a place where he can't call plays. And I hate that people are, in some ways, I hate that people are agreeing with me, where they're like, you might be onto something with Doug, wanting all the credit and Doug not wanting people to steal his thunder. I hate that people actually agree with that point so much, but I don't really have another explanation for why we can't bring somebody in that doesn't have some type of credibility outside of they were a good assistant coach 5 years ago.
Dean's response.
Am I from Philly? Yeah, actually, I am. I grew up 20 minutes from Philly, right across. I'm so Philly, I say water and I say radiator. That's how Philly I am, okay? Water and radiator, and I drink Philly Boost, all right? So it don't get much more Philly, bro. I'm right across the border in South Jersey, right across the Delaware River. We used to take my dad's boat out on the Delaware River and watch the fireworks out at Veterans Stadium after Phillies games, all right? Yeah, I'm Philly, and I'm as Philly as it can get. So I'm just saying, Dean, it's weird to be like, at least we're not the Cow. No Eagles fan in the history of Eagles fan has justified anything with, at least we're not the Cowboys.
Sometimes.
No, I've never heard that.
I
never
haven't,
once.
but I've seen it. It gets bad.
I've maybe heard at least we're not Cowboys fans, but I've never heard at least we're not the Cowboys. First of all, let's be honest. If we were the Cowboys and we had 5 Super Bowl championships, we probably wouldn't shut the hell up about them either. So, I mean, I get it. Cowboys fans don't shut the hell up about the Super Bowls they won 25, 30 years ago, but we'd probably be doing the same thing if we were them, and rightfully so. I get it. But just saying, like, that's a silly point right now. It's completely irrelevant to the conversation. What's up, Bryce? He was on the Chiefs or Colts. It's hard to argue with that, to be honest. I agree. Listen, I don't know if he'd have 30 touchdowns, but my like when I go to sleep at night and when you ever try to go to sleep at night and you toss and turn because you've just got something that's keeping you up, like what that is for me, the things that keep me up at night when I'm trying to sleep is the idea of Carson Wentz getting traded from this organization to somewhere like Indianapolis and winning an MVP and a Super Bowl with Frank Reich with the Colts. Like, those are the types of things that keep me up at night. Because I agree. I think that's what scares me about this whole situation. If we find a way to fuck this up enough where they get rid of Carson and send him packing somewhere, he is going to have such a career with another organization. It's just going to be another one of those Philly sports things that we look back on in 20 years and go, what could have been and never was. And that's my biggest fear, is we have a guy that can be a generational talent in Carson Wentz, and we're just finding every possible way that there is to fuck it up.
Well, no, and we're gonna quick touch on this the Brett Favre point, and then we'll get into what we're gonna go over for this weekend. Brett Favre was throwing his darts, and a lot of people kind of feel like he was talking through Doug through media and all that stuff. And
Brett Favre was throwing darts, huh? Remember when he was throwing darts at that woman when he was married and like 40 and he was with the Vikings? Got caught cheating on his wife. Those are the favorite darts. You know what? I love Favre. Hold on. Because I love Favre. He's actually one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time.
He's probably the closest comparison to Carson, too, when you really think about it.
I agree. Me and you have had this conversation.
As far as how he plays, not as far as their athletic ability.
And I'll even go back further than this, because me and you have had this conversation. You can ask people from A2D. Ask Tom. Ask Frank Vespi. Ask people that I talk a lot to. Okay? I've been saying since 2016 when we first drafted him that I thought he reminded me of Brett Favre. And I think all you've got to do to see that is go back and watch old Brett Favre, tapes, old Brett Favre game film from early to mid 90s and watch Carson, and you'll see the simulators of trying to roll out left, extend plays, throw the ball downfield, always looking for the big plays instead of the check down. Those were all things that Brett Favre made a living on. But Brett Favre also threw 20 interceptions a year, as you like to talk about. He averaged 20 interceptions a year up until his, fifth year in the league or whatever. The guy had 1 year.
I think it was
Brett Favre had 1 year where he had a 100-plus passer rating. One.
And I don't even think, we even go and look at Peyton Manning, didn't he have a 100-plus rating?
Peyton was the guy. Yeah, you're right. Peyton was the guy that he averaged close to 20 interceptions a year or whatever it was for his first 5 years. And it wasn't until year 6 where he really had the big breakout year. That was actually his first. Yeah, Peyton didn't win a playoff game till year 6, and now he's obviously one of the greatest of all time. But, people are going to laugh and say, oh, well, you can't sit there and compare him to Hall of Famers. Nobody's trying to say he's going to have the career that those guys have. But the first thing you do when you watch a player is you look at their skill set and their play style, and you say, who does this guy remind me of? And I think you're foolish to not think. I just think you don't know what you're watching if you don't think that there's similarities in their games. And Doug would know that better than anybody, right? Because he backed up Brett, and he's still really, really good friends with Brett. They're golfing buddies and all that. And me and you made jokes where earlier off the air where you talked about him talking through through the media a little bit. I could see this being a conversation that Doug and Brett had while out golfing, one afternoon about, Brett trying to, say, I think you guys should have kept Nick, and Doug giving us like, no, this is why we weren't going to keep Nick. And that's a silly argument. And them having that conversation personally. And now Brett all of a sudden says something publicly. And you want to know why I think, because Doug Peterson has a way of kind of like poker players have tells and things like that. They kind of have like things about them where you're like, yeah, I can tell you're bluffing here, those types of things. Peterson always has little things like that. And I think sometimes they're intentional when he's answering questions in the media. And you could tell with his Brett Favre answer when he said, I haven't talked to him yet, but we'll talk about it. And he kind of gave that Peterson smirk, the little smile. That makes me think, me and you kind of talked about, that's going to be more than just a phone call. Like that might be a more like, I'm going to grab you by the shirt collar a little bit and be like, bro, like I know we're friends and everything, and I know you're Brett fucking Favre, but shut the fuck up sometimes. Like, you know what I mean? You're making my job harder as like a head coach in one of the most difficult cities to be a successful sports organization to begin with. But like I said earlier, what I liked about that is how Doug ended the presser, where he finally snapped on somebody and said, as far as Nick and Carson goes, like, no, that's ridiculous. Carson's our guy. Carson Wentz is our guy. He's our guy going forward. He's the quarterback of this football team. Don't put words in my mouth or I'm going to get angry. And that's the type of stuff like, okay, hey, like, where's that guy been all year? Finally, somebody pissed Doug off. Somebody woke his ass up and got him to the point where he's fed up with all this nonsense. And if anything, that's going to motivate him and this football team, because the football team, a good football team at least, always seems to take on the personality of their head coach, right? That's always something that we like to talk about. When you talk about like great football teams over the year, they always take on the personality of their head coach in some ways. Well, if Doug's pissed off by this and motivated by it to go, okay, we've got to stick it to somebody. We've got to go out there and stick it to somebody a little bit. Maybe the football team will take the same attitude. They are gunslingers, Bobby. I agree with that. Well, yeah. See, that's the point I was talking about earlier. With Brett and the dick pic and send it to a reporter. That's a great point. Now, Dean, see, like, okay, Dean. Okay, see now. Dean's working his way back into my good graces here, okay? Steven, what did I tell you off the air earlier before we came on the air? How I think Brett also, one of the other things that maybe people aren't talking about enough is Brett could be a little jealous of this, because maybe Brett, being Brett, and Doug Peterson being Doug in their relationship, there's no way that Brett can't at the very least see a little bit of Carson Wentz in himself as a player. Like there's no way he can watch Carson Wentz and then go back and look at himself and be like, yeah, he does some of the things that I used to like to do at that time as far as extended plays and all these crazy erratic things, So maybe it is a little bit of Brett sees a guy that like
body in the double covers and trying to tight window. Yeah.
Not only that, but the way they scramble, like when you go back and watch a young Brett Favre, there was something I picked up on by going back and watching it. Brett always liked the first thing Brett would do, he would try to scramble left. And if you watch Carson, if the play breaks down and the pocket breaks down, he always spins and scrambles left. There's similarities in their games with even little things like that. And the other side of that is Carson's talked about how Brett Favre was his quarterback idol growing up. Like if he could like replicate himself at that, like that was his guy, like that was his quarterback idol. So I think it's really silly for people to think that it's not a good comparison. That's what Carson has modeled himself as a quarterback, or at least a guy at the quarterback position. He's wanted to try to be as close to Brett Favre as he can be. I think he's openly talked about that guy as his idol, and you'd say, well, yeah, that makes sense then for why they kind of have similar skill sets and play styles. But if Brett could be successful and be a Hall of Famer and win a Super Bowl with that type of play style, why can't Carson have long-term sustained success with it? Like these people drive me crazy that are like, well, he's got to stop being so reckless or he won't be successful. Like that's not true, because we've seen guys play reckless like that at the quarterback position, but have long, successful careers. I just think there's a lot more that goes into it than just, obviously coaching and all that goes into it too.
Tony Romo made an entire career off of being a reckless gunslinger.
Yeah, and he was a hell of a quarterback. Speaking of guys that grew up idolizing Brett Favre, Tony Romo literally. You want to talk about guys like You want to turn on the game tape and see like Tony Romo is like Brett Favre's mini-me when you talk about like go and look at them on film. Like Tony Romo was like Brett Favre, like after Brett Favre. Like he just didn't quite have the same success in the long career as Favre did. But when you watch their play styles, I mean, that's exactly like Romo. They were built the same size, same, similar arm strength, the way the play style was, trying to extend plays in the different ways. Romo would, extend a play. And then as you talk about the erratic throws they'd make at times, but some of those erratic throws would lead to big plays just as many times as they would lead to interceptions and things like that too, right? So you took the good with the bad and you lived with it. One thing that bothers me with I can get people wanting to knock on Carson about being erratic okay, that's fine. But you can't tell me that if Brett Favre played in this city back in the day that we wouldn't have loved the hell out of that man. Because we love guys that battle, that, guys that are such competitors. They have such a competitive fire where, they never think they're out of it. They always think they have a chance to win. They have a never say die type attitude. We love those guys. That's why we love the 93 Phillies team. That's why we love Chase Utley, right? That's why we fall in love with athletes in this city for a lot of reasons. And the one thing I'll say about Carson is erratic as he's been and maybe inconsistent in the turnovers this year. The guy battles his ass off. Like the Ravens game we talked about where that team, I mean, we were left for dead. That team was ready to roll over and die and just say, okay, you know what? We're getting our ass kicked. It is what it is. And Carson sparked the comeback in the second half in the fourth quarter of that game. Carson sparked the team coming within 2 points of actually winning that football game. That was Carson that put that team on his back and said, hey, boys, it ain't over yet. Let's go do this thing. So, of all the things, like, I don't understand. Like, we usually love athletes with the Carson Wentz type mentality in this city. Like, every other example of guys that play with a Carson Wentz like mentality in this city, we love those guys. Chase Utley, those types of guys, right? But we hate Carson Wentz. That's the part of it that doesn't make sense to me about it. I can get bitching and whining and wanting the guy to be more consistent and cut down on the turnovers and things like that. But I don't understand, like, the fact that there's not love for this guy the way there seems to be love for every other player that plays the game the way that he plays it in their respective sport. And it doesn't matter. Like, we loved AI for that reason, right? Allen Iverson was a guy that could be, he was reckless and all over the place at times, but the guy had such heart, such fire, such a competitive, nature about him. We could take all the bad about the guy because we loved the good about him so much. He was ours, you know what I mean? And we would go to bat for that guy no matter what because he showed that fight and that heart and that battle on the court time and time again for us. Why don't we show that same love to a guy like Carson? That's what doesn't make sense about that for me. Am I wrong? Like, am I crazy with that point, Steven? Like, am I? Like,
it's one of, like, listen, it's an odd thing. I get, he got hurt and Nick kind of was the guy. And in a perfect world, you kind of wish it was Carson that took us on that run, and we didn't have to deal with all this other nonsense. But I kind of
that's such a great point. It really is. I love that you made that point, Steven. That's because you know what? It brings me back to thinking about that Super Bowl run. And one of the things I remember thinking leading up to that Super Bowl was, listen, I want us to win a Super Bowl, of course. Of course I want us to win the Super Bowl. But at the same time, if we win the Super Bowl, I know this, like, I could already see the writing on the wall. I knew what it was going to turn. If we win the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, here we go. The stupid people in this fan base are going to come out and we're going to have a quarterback controversy, even though we shouldn't. There's going to be people that are never going to let this go. And not only did that happen, but I think it got even worse than even I thought it would. You know what I mean? So, like, that's such a great point where it's like, maybe that's what that, like, yeah, we sacrificed, like, people talk about selling our soul to the devil in order to win that Super Bowl. Maybe part of that was, yeah, we got our Super Bowl, but now nobody's ever going to appreciate Carson Wentz as a football player in this city just because of what Nick did with that team. Like, it's such a weird thing to me why we couldn't, like, appreciate both. But, no, Dan Burrito, what he has to do is use that Brett Favre mentality 5 or 6 plays a game. No, that's bullshit because you either have that mentality all the time or you don't have that mentality at all. That's not the way that mentality works. You can't just turn that mentality off and then turn it on. That's the way you play the game or it's not. Like, you know what I mean? And, like, that's just the way it is. And I think there's plenty of players in all sports that have that type of mentality. That Kobe Bryant was that way. Right now, Kobe's one of the all-time greats, take all that out. But like we talk about that competitive fire, the never say die attitude. Those are things that, all great, like when you talk about like my favorite athletes of all sports, those are all of my favorite athletes. They involve having that type of personality trait about them, So maybe that's what, like I was thinking about this over the past few weeks, and maybe that's what bothers me so much about these people that rip Carson Wentz. Not so much them ripping his play, because I get it. I'm not happy with his play either. But to sit here and act as if like those same people don't look like total hypocrites, because those are the same people that love a guy like I don't know, any scrub like a TJ McConnell. Those are the same people that love a TJ McConnell because they'll say he's scrappy and he's got heart and he just epitomizes everything we want in a Philadelphia athlete. And you're like, TJ McConnell stinks. Like, I like TJ McConnell too. Good kid, great heart, fiery competitor, but he stinks. But we love that guy. Yet we hate Carson Wentz. Those are the things that don't make sense. It's like, I get it. Like, I get like those, they make me laugh sometimes, but I get why you love a guy like TJ McConnell, because he's got all this heart and this fiery competitiveness in it, and it relates to you as a blue collar Philadelphian. But if that was the case, then Carson should relate to you as a blue collar Philadelphian too. I mean, this is a dude that grew up as blue collar as it gets on a farm in North Dakota somewhere, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is one of us. He's a blue collar dude. And he sits here and works his ass off and battles every single game. And I feel like at times we don't appreciate that with him. Well, we'll appreciate that with any other player in any other sport, in any other position, but we won't appreciate that with Carson. I'm fine with people. I think this would go over so much better with me. People would say, hey, Carson needs to play better. Carson needs to do this better. Carson needs to do that better. But I love his competitive fire, and I love the fact that he battles every single play until the very final whistle. If they would add that part into it, I think it would make me feel better about it, but I feel like they're intentionally ignoring that side of it to try to help their narrative with it. Like, oh, well, he stinks. A lot of guys stink in this town a lot worse than Carson does. Like, Carson's a lot better than a lot of those guys that people love in this city that are actual scrubs, yet we choose to hate on this guy. And maybe I'm just going to be the guy that's going to take the hard-nosed stance against, like, you're not going to be a Carson Wentz hater in my presence. I won't allow it type of thing. But you know what? There's enough of those fucking haters in this fan base. Maybe one of us needs to be a guy that's like, none of that shit in my presence. I won't allow it type shit. I'm going to have the guy's back no matter what.
I mean, wasn't there a post about that? Who's that one athlete you go to war on for on social media? There's always that one, right?
Yeah, there's always that one guy, but there's a reason you go to war for him, right? Like, there's that reason. And the one thing, like, there's people that knock Carson Wentz's toughness, and that shit drives me crazy. Like, of all the things to sit here and bash the guy about, we're going to talk about the guy's toughness when he threw a touchdown pass on a broken knee. Like, certain things just get ridiculous, and you can separate the idea from people that are being, they're just trying to be realistic about a situation, and people that are just trying to be way too over the top and be a hater. And Carson's one of those guys that, for whatever reason, rubbed enough people the wrong way in this city, where now he's got so many haters that no matter what he does, those haters are never going to go away. They're always going to be there. But I love what Kobe said about his point. Kobe here says about Wentz was asked about what Brett said, and he looked pissed. Good. Doug Peterson sounded pissed at the end of his press conference. I want Carson to look pissed. That tells me that Carson's the competitor that I think he is. That tells me that he's got that competitive fire that I think he does. Nobody that's got a competitive fire of that kind, that has that never say die attitude, likes when somebody says something stupid like that kind of, makes them look lesser than what they are. That pisses every, legitimate athlete off, athlete of that kind off, any athlete with a competitive fire of that kind. So I'm glad he was pissed.
Actually, Bobby, I've seen a lot of people trash Michael Vick in the city for the way he played, among other things.
Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of people that wrongfully bashed Vic too, and just didn't understand the style of play and what it brought to your team. What it brought to you, as far as
Michael Vick was an absolute gunslinger,
he was a game breaker. He was a game breaker. When you put him in that Andy Reid offense, he was a game breaker with both. In Atlanta, he was a game breaker with his legs. In Philly, he was a game breaker with both. He could beat you with his legs, his arm. He could even beat you with his mind at times. In Philly, you finally saw him step up to the line of scrimmage, read a defense, change a play, make it audible, and you're like, wow, like we didn't see Michael Vick do that in Atlanta. Like, hey, he's watching game film all of a sudden. Like, but you want to talk about like, back to the Doug Peterson point for a moment. What the difference between great coaching and guys that are just a guy? Michael Vick's openly talked about how he didn't watch game film at all in Atlanta. They would give him game film. He would just throw it in the trunk of his car, take it home, and never, ever, ever put it in a VCR and watch it. It wasn't until he got to Philadelphia where he actually legitimately studied game film and actually tried to study and prepare and become the best player he could be. But he said that's because he had a guy in Andy Reid that, gave him all this confidence that, hey, if you go study that, if you study it and watch it the way I'm telling you to, show up to practice ready on Thursday, I'm telling you, we're going to have something for them on Sunday. You're going to be the best player you've ever been. And once you start seeing the results as a player, it's easy to buy into that shit. So it's amazing what good coaching can do for something like that. Here's a guy that his whole career, you couldn't get him to go watch game film at all. Nothing they could do to get him to commit to that. And he steps into the right environment with the right coach and a guy that made him believe, in the system and everything around him. And immediately he buys in and says, okay, yeah, I'll go, I'm going to study the game film now. I'm going to go watch the tape, all those things. So this idea that, if one of those executives is saying that there's not enough accountability amongst this coaching staff, well, that's not a problem. That's a coaching staff issue. Players. The players are the players. These are grown ass men. This is the way grown men work in any industry. It doesn't matter what job you do. If your boss doesn't make it clear that he's the boss and he's in charge, employees are going to try to find a way to get away with as much as they can possibly get away with, right? Like that's the way that works. So idea that people aren't being held accountable, well, okay, well, that says more about the coaches than it does anything else.
Now, I think we're beating all this preemptive off-field stuff, nonsense to death.
Maybe we are, but maybe it also needed to be talked about.
Well, I know you had to get it out of you, bro. I know you had to get it out of you.
A lot of other people seem to obviously have at least been thinking about this stuff because as we've seen in the comment sections, it's at least been on their mind too in some ways, right? So maybe it's more than just us being a conspiracy theorist at this point.
So, here we go. We're back from the bye. Tomorrow, 1:00, New York. What do you got, brother? What do you expect to see? What are your predictions? Who's gonna be the guy to step up on offense and make a play? And who are you looking at on defense to kind of put the Giants in their place this game?
Yeah, people whip the Giants, but the one thing about the Giants, their defense is pretty solid. And we learned that first matchup. They have a pretty solid defense. Offensively, there's still Daniel Jones is their quarterback, and the guy outside of the Washington football team, apparently he can't beat anybody. So, and another thing I liked about it, I look at these Vegas lines. That game's at the Meadowlands, right? It's at the Meadowlands on the road, right?
Yeah, I think we got 4 points or something like that.
We're favored by 3 or 4 points, bro. That I saw 3 this morning down here, so I don't know if it's 4 up there. There might be conflicting lines. Some lines might have 3, some might have 4. The bottom line is that's an Eagles line all the way around, regardless of how you spin it. On the road, and you're a 3-point favorite. I mean, that tells me we might finally have that breakout game we've wanted all year. And we're talking about like that breakout performance where maybe we could finally roll somebody and not have to play a close football game. Can this finally be that game? Please, a game where I don't have to sweat and sit here and worry about what my Monday is going to be like, until like 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. I'd love to see this offense explode. Rager have a great day. His best game as a pro. Carson have his best game of the season. Us score 30 plus points, something like that, on what is being considered a pretty good defense right now. I've been optimistic the whole show pretty much as far as what I want the second half to be. As much as you think we beat the dead horse with all these things off the field, all those things can go away if we go 6-2 in the second half. So let's remember that too, Steven. All those things I'm talking about, all these worries and all that I have, all those things can go away very quickly if you go 6-2 the rest of the way and play good football. So I'll stay optimistic, and I'll have us starting this thing off with coming out of the bye, a big win against the Giants. It maybe gets a little bit ugly in our favor. You take your pick on what ugly is.
You think they're going to go in that house and smack them around?
a pissed off football team is sometimes a good football team. I think Doug Peterson's a little bit pissed. I think Carson Wentz is a little bit pissed. And this team maybe has a little something to prove. And, okay, if that's whatever it takes to get you guys to perform at your highest level, okay, go for it. I'm all for it. I'd love to see Rager have his breakout game as a pro. And you got all these other guys coming back, and the defense for the Giants is focused on all those guys. And Rager, has a game that, 10 catches, 150 yards, couple touchdowns. Oh, I'd love it. Something like that if it could happen. But I want to see a comfortable win. I want to see a confident win. I want to see us go lay the smackdown on them a little bit and look confident in the process and kind of smell ourselves a little bit. Like, okay, hey, let's motivate ourselves to play at this high level. People, I know we ripped this team when they started doing that stuff like prematurely in 2017, but maybe that's something that helps this team like get to that highest level. The touchdown dances and all those little things. Like, I'm cool with it. Like, just like I'm cool with the bat flips in baseball and all that. If all that personality is what you need to show in order to kind of all that swagger is what you need to show to get the most out of yourself as a football team, fuck it at this point. I'm all for it. I like a big win here.
I'm sitting there saying like a 20, 28, 13, something like that. I hope it's along one of them lines.
I'll live with that. I'd like to see a little bit more of a high-scoring performance from our offense, but I'll live with 28-13.
I don't.
That's an old school smackdown.
Yeah.
That's one of them, like, when your defense kind of smacks the team around a little bit.
Our defense has played really well this season, and we didn't give up a whole lot of points on the first time. It was just
I agree. Yeah.
Bad. You get a couple bad touchdowns, but I don't think this defense is going to do that right now. I think they're going to be healthy. I think that offense will still be able to look good. Just see if we can clean up those mistakes from the red zone that really cost us some points in that first game that really would have been able to blow it open for us. So we'll see how that. Go on.
I just don't want us. Like Colin Cowherd came out with his comment where he said he thinks the Giants at this point are the best team in the NFC East. And I mean, like, I almost like exploded out of my chair, but good Lord, like, worst case scenario in this game is to go and prove a stupid comment like that, right?
Here's the funniest thing about that. If you'd watched the segment where he did that, right beforehand, he was ripping Brett Favre for going after Carson Wentz. And then the next segment, he goes and turns like, okay, the Giants are going to win Sunday, and they're going to win. I'm like, am I in the Twilight Zone?
I think Colin's got something against. He doesn't like Doug Peterson. He loves Carson Wentz. I think he hates Doug Peterson. But I don't know. The whole thing, that comment, and you're like, the last thing I need is like something where we lay an egg and the Giants actually go out and look like a good football team, and then we have to have this fucking conversation next Saturday about all this talk and about how what we were going to come out looking like in the second half, and we lose to the fucking Giants. But I need something like that to put the rest. Just
yeah.
I need a smackdown.
I think we get a little bit lucky here where we get the Giants and the Browns in back-to-back weeks before we get into that really rough stretch.
I saw somebody say we're going to lose the Browns game. And like they think we're going to lose the Browns game. Now, I thought that Browns game was probably tougher 4 or 5 weeks ago than I do now. They don't have Odell Beckham now, which really hurts them. That offense, they lost Nick Chubb, which has hurt them. They kind of look like they've kind of plateaued as an offense a little bit. If we shouldn't lose to the Browns. You lose to the Browns, and like I talked about us being between a bad football team and a good football team. We're somewhere in the middle. If you lose to the Browns, you're not in the middle. If you lose to the Browns, you're just a bad football team again. Like, I'm not like willing. I'm not having that conversation with people. I'm not entertaining that conversation right now. The only conversation I'm entertaining at this very moment is we go and smack the Giants, we go and smack the Browns, and then, that gives us some confidence going into a Seattle primetime game. And then it's time to get excited. But I think we need something to get us excited going into that game. You know what I mean? Like a couple big wins, not just beating the Giants and Browns, but like smacking them around a little bit these next couple weeks would give us a lot of confidence going into that Seahawks game in primetime in Philly, making us think, hey, maybe we got something here for these guys. You struggle to go beat Cleveland.
Oh man. Don't you put that on us, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put
I
that
mean, that's what we're going to do. We're going to sit here. All of us are going to talk about how much we're going to kick the Giants' ass, and then this, we know what's going to happen. That's been 2020, the season so far for us. But I mean, that's why I say the bye week. You turn the corner, and anything that happened that was a consistent thing in the past, the start of the year, you move on from it, and that's not going to be the case in the second half. And it's that simple. You try to be as positive and optimistic as you can. Did Chubb get taken off IR? Well, that's good for them. Okay,
yeah.
I mean, that gives them one more weapon. But
as far as who I see making the impact on offense and defense in this game, I'm gonna stay with Travis Fulgham. He's kind of been who Carson's kind of been really relying on. I know Miles is back. I know Alshon is back. I know we're getting even more healthier up front too. But I still say Travis Fulgham is still gonna have a nice little game. Like 8 catches, 85 yards, a touchdown, maybe 2. Who knows how it goes, how the distribution is gonna go, and if they're gonna roll coverage his way or whatever. I don't think they can be able to do that now that Alshon's back. That's why I'm sitting there saying I'm really liking that he's back.
I'm with you there.
And it's not even because the production he's going to give us. Is because just the fact that he's on the field and they're going to have to honor him regardless.
No, I mean, that part of it is true.
Alshon has like 3 catches for like 63 yards. It's a win. It's a win.
If Alshon has 3 catches of any kind, it's a win.
Yeah, I know but defense. I know a lot of guys are still really loving TJ Edwards' performance. The last game.
Here's what's great about TJ Edwards. Okay, like the shiniest turd in a pile of shit is still a turd, right? Like I get it. Like TJ Edwards has been our best linebacker, but is that because he's a good player, or is that just because we've just got a bunch of other turds around him and he's the shiniest turd? Like. I would love to think that TJ Edwards is a good player, but this is almost like when Michael Carter-Williams won Rookie of the Year for the Sixers, and you were like, that wasn't because he was any good. That was just because he was playing with you as his second best player. So it's easy to look like the best linebacker when like you've got guys that shouldn't even be playing like next to Nathan Gary, I would look like a good linebacker. It's one of those things where for me, I'm glad he's playing good, but I'm not necessarily sold on the idea of him being a good player.
Now, I still think it's going to be.
Look at this guy. What are you, his mother, Kobe? TJ Edwards is actually a great run stuffer. He said stiffer, not stuffer. He's a great run stiffer, and he can actually fucking cover over Gary. All right, don't get your panties in a wad just because I talk bad about your son. Okay, good Lord. Like, my God. This is what I can't stand, and this is what pisses other people. I know Tommy gets fired up about this shit. Just because TJ Edwards has looked okay, he's looked okay at the linebacker position. He's been the best linebacker. We got nobody at the line. We found a guy in the Canadian Football League. That's how bad our linebackers are. And we're going to sit here and now we're going to defend TJ Edwards. We can't rip TJ Edwards. He's unrippable. You can't even sit here and say a goddamn bad thing about the guy without somebody's coming to his defense about how much they love this kid because he's the next greatest fucking thing. He's going to be the next fucking Lawrence Taylor or something. Like get the miss me with this shit, guys. Like seriously, TJ Edwards is a great run stuffer. Can actually fucking cover. He's a decent player. I'm with you. He looks decent. He's an okay player. He's not Ray fucking Lewis. Oh my God, we make the guy sound like he's Brian Urlacher all of a sudden.
Who do you think will have the bigger game of your defensive tackles? Cox or Malik Jackson? A lot of people been saying they think Malik Jackson's about to have a breakout game.
I don't make predictions over defensive tackles, Stephen. It's not a position I make predictions.
Those defensive tackles are probably going to be where you're going to see the breakdown up front in that. So, I mean, I think that's probably where you're probably going to get your star of the game. You really think about it.
Okay, well, if you say so. I mean,
I don't see the ends getting home. I see the way it happens.
That's fine.
And he's gonna collapse right into.
But you know how stupid people look. Like they're sitting here and say, "I think Fletcher Cox is going to have 2 sacks in this game." Like I don't make predictions like for defensive tackles. Like defensive tackles are more guys.
I didn't say. I just said which one's going to.
Who's going to have more of an impact on the game? Fletcher Cox, because Fletcher Cox always has more of an impact on the game. How about that?
So you tell people to put their Malik Jackson stuff to bed?
And Malik Jackson's going to have a good game. He's not going to be double teamed more than Fletcher Cox is. So therefore, Fletcher Cox already had more of an impact. If Fletcher Cox is taking 2 blockers for the 90% of the snaps, and he's going to have a double team for 90% of the snaps, he's already a more effective
I'm going to
player.
have to address right before we change topics there. This one we're going to have to. Now I got to get you wrong on this one. I already say this is like I already said it already. This is like kind of a mixture between Happy Gilmore meets Caddyshack. And you know, the only thing missing at the end of that video was Chevy Chase and his no. That was it. That's the only thing missing.
I wanted to see a gopher or groundhog run across at the end and like just knock it out right before it got to the hole. Like he skimmed it across the water for all of that, and it gets to the point you're like, it's gonna go in, and then like a groundhog just like right at the last minute, just like knocks it out. Like somebody call Rodney Dangerfield, you know.
BG was the only defensive end that's been getting home all year. What are you talking about, bro?
Well, have you heard Josh Sweat's been on the field?
Have you heard Derek getting home? Derek Barnett's name hasn't really been heard all year long. Okay,
I agree with you there, but Josh Sweat's had more of an impact.
But he's been getting pressures, not sacks. So I don't want to hear they've been getting home. The only one that's been getting home has been him.
What counts? So you have to finish the sack in order to get home? To me, getting to the quarterback's getting home. Affecting his throw, actually affecting the play by getting to the quarterback. Not necessarily second, but you actually got to get to the quarterback and affect the play.
You wanted your prediction? There you go, brother.
Barnett and BG play on the outside, so like that wasn't the question. The question was about the defensive tackles. Go ahead with your prediction that Malik Jackson will have 2 sacks. What did he do? And if you're right, like watch, he's gonna be here next week if he's right. Like I predicted that Malik Jackson would have 2 sacks. Like Jesus Christ.
But that's the
defensive tackle position.
That's the point I'm making. Dang, Sweat as the one has been there, has been making the plays. Barnett, you don't hear his name anymore.
Yeah, I think part of that is
you heard his name.
I think if we're just gonna go ahead.
You heard his name more his rookie season than you have at all this season.
Yeah, you haven't heard his name a lot since 2017 for sure. I'll say this about Barnett. I think it's clear that they don't want to sign him to an extension, so they'll just rather play Sweat, try to phase Barnett out of the rotation as much as they can. That way you don't have to worry about him making plays. That way you don't have to worry about trying to, negotiate with him for an extension. And fuck it, we could just save money by not, signing the guy after the year. Should be the end of his rookie contract, I believe, right? 2017. Yeah, you have a 4-year rookie contract, so this should be the end of that rookie deal after this year. So you're out of that contract. Josh Sweat's, looked like a better player already, in my opinion, but there's no way they're going to re-sign Barnett, and I think we're all foolish if we think there's not a reason.
Josh Sweat will be your opening day starter next season, and with the first or second pick, they'll probably pick a defensive tackle.
I think we're all being foolish if we know why Barnett hasn't had more of an impact.
Tackle. Well, I don't know why it's a tackle. We're talking.
We'll find somebody that can try to be a game breaker on the outside in some ways that can get pressure on the quarterback and all that. But yeah, I think all those things are by design. Like there's a reason we haven't seen more of Barnett. There's a reason he hasn't been more productive. There's a reason he's gotten phased out and Sweat's taking his plays. Those things aren't necessarily by accident.
Absolutely, but. Real quick, before we talk a little basketball, gotta talk a little MMA. Obviously, we got some things going on here with the fact that I mentioned it while we had Jessica on, was the fact that Paul Felder just took a fight on 5 days' notice, and he's fighting tonight in the main event.
Paul Felder? Wait a minute! Whoa! I thought you were referencing something older. Paul Felder. I thought he retired. Didn't he retire? What's he coming out of retirement?
Paul Felder. The other one who retires and then unretires is freaking McGregor, man. Don't get that mixed up.
I thought Felder said he was walking away, though. Like, because I liked Felder for a while because he's from Philly, the Irish, red hair. He's got that spinning back fist that he died. I really liked Felder. But I thought I saw something recently where he said he was done fighting.
Yeah, he's getting to that point. Like, what does he else have to prove unless he's going getting some of these big fights? Something like fighting, Rafael dos Anjos on 5 days' notice in a main event that's a 5-round fight.
At very least, it's a good payday.
Hey, he was that fight. It puts him in a conversation to get in there at lightweight where. Khabib is the one who just retired. That's probably what's throwing you off. But
No, I read some because Felder, like I have Philly like sports news that floats around on my phone
I
on my
think he would
newsfeed, and I saw something
because he
about
just
Felder
did
saying he wanted to walk away
like
or something.
one of like the hype videos, and they were talking to him, and he was talking about his dad and pancreatic cancer, and he said his dad would say he should retire. He just said that within the last 2 days, so maybe that's probably what was kind of going around your feed. But
Okay.
but he's fighting tonight, and anyone from the area who maybe isn't a UFC fan, maybe really doesn't know too much about it. The fact that you got one of your guys in your backyard that taking a pretty big fight on 5 days notice, and I just say tune in for that fact. I don't care if you buy it, pirate it, do whatever. I don't care, man. Make sure you watch it because this dude always comes to scrap. If he loses, it's in a war, and I just say show the man the love. And then we were just talking about the video. I just seen him talking about his dad and pancreatic cancer. He's got the whole Movember mustache going, so he legit looks like an 80s porn star right about now. So he's acting on the other way. I can't shave it. If I shave this, it's gonna be craziness in my house. I can't do it. Love Movember and all that, but yeah, definitely can't lose the beard. And still, we had the people on social media asking if it's a requirement to have the beard on here, but it might be. I don't know. We had Travis on last week. He didn't have one, so it not quite a requirement.
Yeah, what's her name didn't have one today, so I don't think it's a requirement.
Yeah, I don't. But either way, definitely should gonna have fun with that one. I know you don't really know a whole lot of other fighters on the card. I just wanted to make sure I said some love to Paul. Make sure I let the fans, the peeps know, the fam know, everyone make sure you guys are tuning in for that one. But NBA's getting down to it. I think they announced December 19th we'll be back. I think we're about a month away from we're getting to the draft here, and a lot of rumors flying around about the Philadelphia 76ers and making draft day moves. You've seen all kinds of names being thrown around, but Buddy Harold is a name that's kind of being thrown around. We've already know that the Sixers front office is going to make a splash, and I think it's pretty evident now that we're not going to see Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons go anywhere. So I think Tobias Harris, Josh Richardson, Mike Scott, all these guys that should probably
Matisse Thybulle.
As much as we love Matisse, and I'm a Matisse guy. If he's a part of a package, he's a part of a package. If one of your picks the next 2 years is a part of a package, it's a part of a package. At this point in time, the Sixers should be win within the next 2 to 3 seasons at all costs right now, because it's pretty much where you're at. It's now or never.
And that's why you see them connected so much right now to the James Harden conversation, it seems like. And I know there's a lot of people in this city that hate it. People can say whatever they want about him as a player. That's all fine. Something I read, the thing that I don't like about him, that I'm completely out on, is the Russell Westbrook thing that just came out. And Russell Westbrook announced he wants to trade from Houston because he's worried about the direction of the franchise and accountability within the front office and all those things. And the story that I read involved, obviously, to all accounts, Harden and James Harden and Russell Westbrook are really, really tight. They're really good friends going back to the Oklahoma City days. And apparently there was, a team meeting with Houston at some point this year where Russell Westbrook spoke up as the team leader and became the guy that went around that meeting and said, listen, here's the bottom line. This is what everybody needs to get better at. And he started with himself. I need to get better at this. This is what I need to get better at, and went around the room. And according to this whole report, part of what's led to Westbrook now wanting out and everything blowing up with possibly Harden getting out and all that is once it got around the Harden and Westbrook, was being constructive, with Harden and giving constructive criticism to Harden on what he felt like James needed to get better at his game, what James needed to do to improve and help the team more. Apparently Harden wasn't as receptive to any of that as everybody else on the team was. And as Westbrook was very honest with himself. This is what I need to get better at. And James Harden, according to all of his teammates and all that report, they felt like he wasn't able to do the same. Well, if that's the case, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm just going off of what the report says, and you know what? I actually trust the report. If Russell Westbrook's this mad where he now wants out, I can see that, because Westbrook's one of those guys that, as much as we rip him and stuff for coming up small in the playoff time, he always has a competitive fire that never seems to go away. Like, it's actually scary. You're like, this guy would intimidate me if I was a teammate of his. Like, I love him, but like at the same time, you're a little bit scared of him at the same time, type of thing. I would take him on my team, I think, any day of the week before I would take Harden on my team, because that type of story scares me. People call Harden a loser. I don't know. He hasn't won anything, but there could be other reasons for that. But then when I read a story like that, the guy doesn't want to sit here and be called out by, his best friend and somebody that's, arguably just as good of a player as you. You're not even open enough to be able to accept that constructive criticism and be coachable. You know what? You sound like more of a problem in my locker room than you do somebody I'm going to trade because you're going to get me over the hump to win a championship. You know what that sounds like to me? And I hate to make this comparison because we love the guy in the city. That sounds a lot to me like a Charles Barkley type superstar. As good of a player as Sir Charles was, right? And as much as we love the guy, the round mound of rebound and all that, right? It seemed like, no matter where he went, the reason he never won a championship, there was reasons for it outside of talent, because he was plenty talented. And maybe that's what we have with Harden here, all types of talent. Yeah, he puts up the great numbers, but there's just something missing there, as far as the competitive nature and the competitive makeup of that guy goes, to make me trust and think that he's worth bringing in to make a championship run. I'd rather go with the other option that we heard a lot about that seemed like it was gaining steam about a month or two ago with Chris Paul. I think bringing in Chris Paul and having Ben Simmons play at the 4 while Chris Paul's your 1, and then maybe finding a way to bring in Buddy Hield, who's a shooter, that's a way better idea than even trying to consider the idea
and that Buddy
of
Hield,
James Harden.
And the thing I liked about that Buddy Hield rumor wasn't a whole lot you had to give up to go get him, and then
he's apparently unhappy out there, and they've had a broken relationship out there in Sacramento, so that's good for us too. Yeah, what are you going to give up? A couple second-round picks?
Now, if you can get that, and then you could maybe get another piece, yeah, this team is probably in a position to make a run at the East and possibly an NBA Finals title either this year or next year or the year after. It should be no more than 3 years. This team should win an NBA title.
I think that's exactly what you're bringing in Doc because, you could say, well, of course in 5 years you still want to be good. Of course in 10 years you still want to be good. But this isn't like you're trying to build something for 5 to 10 years. You're really, really close. Like, you are so close. We are so close. We need that extra thing. What's the couple extra things that's going to get us over the top? Doc's obviously piece number 1. We've established a great coaching staff around him. Back to great coaches, great head coaches, have great assistants around them. Hell, Doc wasn't scared to bring in great assistants that are going to get all types of credit when this team's playing really, really well. He's not scared that those guys are going to steal his thunder. Fuck it. Let them get credit. They deserve credit.
And not just
that's just going to make this team that much better.
Go and get coaching positions elsewhere because of whatever's going to happen here over the next
year. Or at some point you really look at it and you could say, how much longer does Doc really want to coach? He talked about the possibility of retiring and taking a break from basketball and coaching basketball at least for a couple years before taking the Sixers job. Say we win another championship in 3 years. We win another championship. Who's to say Doc's like, you know what? I'm retiring. I'm taking a break. I'm getting away from the game. I've got a couple rings. I'm cool with going and hanging out with my family for a little bit. And Sam Cassell's here, and he can be a great head coach. And this guy's here, and he can be a great head coach. Dave Yeager's here. He's already been a great head coach. Who's to say that that's not already the conversation that's going on? And that's why all these guys have agreed to join this coaching staff, because they know Doc doesn't want to coach for anything more than another few years. Maybe that is the case.
Now, here's this one. What are your chances, agree to disagree? You think the Sixers deal their number 1 pick and don't draft a pick on draft night?
If they're going to, it depends on who they're trading that for. Now, listen, me and you just had the Harden conversation.
It's obviously going to be to add a third star to that group, and it'll probably be involving. It'll probably be involving Tobias Harris leaving because obviously
I want to keep Tobias. Unless I'm trading unless Tobias is going to be involved in like a Chris Paul deal or something like that. I'm keeping it because
he's probably going to be I thought that was part of that rumor, part of the Buddy Hield thing.
I'm not giving him up for Buddy Hield. I'm not. Like Buddy Hield's not a good enough player for me to sit here. Like I think you can get enough out of Tobias Harris because of his past experience with Doc Rivers for me to want to be okay with keeping him around for at least one more year. Now I'm okay with trading him to bring in a Chris Paul, a James Harden, somebody like that. Now, and I want to get back to that real quick because I know we just had the point. I'm with you. I just told you how I feel about Harden personally. But if I'm just looking at what I'm seeing from the writing on the wall, we hired Daryl Morey, right? Morey, the former head man that was out there, the GM in Houston.
It's going to be Harden, not Westbrook, is the guy we're trying to pull out of Houston.
I would love for it to be Houston. I'd love for it to be Westbrook and not Harden. But if I'm just looking at the writing on the wall, I see a lot more connections to Harden. I see Harden having us on his short list of teams he would love to go to. And I see a connection here already with his former GM being now our GM here in Philadelphia. As much as I don't like the idea of it, as much as I think James Harden isn't,
I think with what you've already laid out for us,
I think it's going to happen.
But what you've already laid out for us and what has already been the situation in this locker room on this team, that could be extremely dangerous and volatile.
I don't want him in this locker room, but I think he's going to end up in this locker room. See, this is if we're going to have what do I want versus what do I think is going to happen. What do I want? I'd rather trade for Chris Paul, and then like if Tobias Harris and a first-round pick ends up in that Chris Paul deal, cool. And then I'll find a way, hopefully, to maybe still find a way to work a deal for Buddy Hield. If that involves the Al Horford deal, a couple second-round picks, a future first, whatever the hell I got to do, I'm cool with doing that too. Because now I have Chris Paul running the point. I've got Buddy Hield who can shoot it from the perimeter, and that makes Ben Simmons a much, much better player now at the power forward position with the ability to play point forward offensively and pretty much cover anybody 1 through 5 on the defensive side. He's a much more valuable player there. And Joel Embiid doesn't feel like he has to pop out to the perimeter and shoot threes because you've got guys that can shoot from the perimeter in both Chris Paul and Buddy Hield.
But he can when necessary, or when the defense is sleeping, he's just going to pop.
He can when necessary, but he doesn't have to feel like he's forced to. So I love that scenario way more than the Harden thing. If I'm just looking at what I'm seeing with my eyes play out because Morey's here and now just put 2 and 2 together, what's the writing on the wall tell me? We're going to make a James Harden deal. And it's probably not going to be a deal I like. It's going to involve a first-round pick. It's going to involve a Matisse Thybulle. It's going to involve Tobias Harris. It's going to involve maybe even another piece in there where we're like, why? Why do we have to give up all that? A first-round pick, another first-round pick next year, Matisse Thybulle, and Tobias Harris. I really don't want to have to give up all that for James Harden. But I could see that being a deal we do.
Of course, Matt asked to take a shot. Tommy had already mentioned in one of his crumbs of the week.
Vinny Mazenton? Is that who we're talking about?
I don't know. The one has like 2,000 into trade rumors from sources that
Vinny Mazenton follows us. I would hope it's not him.
I don't know.
No, I mean, I would love to say that Morey makes the Russell Westbrook thing a possibility too. And if you ask me that deal that I just mentioned for Harden, would I do that same deal for Westbrook? I think I would. Because I like Westbrook's mentality a lot more. And I know he's not a great shooter, but he's at least a guy that can play point guard and he can shoot the ball well enough where you're comfortable with it. He's not going to be afraid to take the big shot when you need it, where we know Ben Simmons won't take the big shot. Or at least he hasn't shown that ability to yet. So I'll at least go with a guy like Westbrook, who I know is not afraid to do that. And if it ends up being Westbrook instead of Chris Paul, and we could still find a way to bring in a Buddy Hield, I'm cool with that too. Westbrook, Buddy Hield, Simmons, Embiid, and everything else going with this team. Okay, cool. But I think to your point, one way or another, a big deal of some kind is going to happen. They're going to bring in a big name.
I don't think they will make a selection. I don't.
Yeah, I mean that pick is what, in the mid-20s, right?
Yeah. I don't. It's nothing. Yeah.
I'm probably better with. I mean, like really, to be honest, if you're like, why are you okay with trading capital like that and not drafting somebody? Who the fuck am I drafting at 25 without getting extremely fucking lucky? You know what I mean? Like, who am I really drafting at that point without getting really lucky?
When's the last time our scouting department's actually like nailed one of those ones? Like
You know,
nailed one of them.
You know, Matisse Thybulle looks like a nice player. Good for him. Okay, great. You know, but is he a superstar? No. Is he going to be a superstar? No.
Is whoever you're going to take there going to be on this team or be somebody you're going to start this team?
Right. Are they going to be a good enough player? Are they going to be enough of an impact player on this team 3 to 5 years from now for you to look at it and say it's more worth it for me to keep that pick and take that guy than it is to trade that pick for a Chris Paul, a Russell Westbrook, or James Harden? But I will say this: I don't think I'm giving that pick up straight up for Buddy Hield. I really am not just
straight up. It's definitely not straight up.
I'm not like giving you a first round pick for Buddy Hield.
Like I would give him that pick and then get another future one back on the back end. Like
you're gonna give me Buddy Hield and next year's first for this year's first. Okay,
I
maybe
don't
now
want
we'll
next year's
talk.
first either because I'm still competing at that point in time. I want to wait to see what that team is and get one of your better picks that maybe 2-3 years down the line.
Okay. Well,
when you're gonna need a higher pick to go and do something.
Or just give me another perimeter shooter, Buddy Hield, and another perimeter shooter, just because we can use another perimeter shooter. I mean, whatever. But I'd still.
What was the rumor we were here? The Landry Shamit's coming back and all that. I'm like, oh God, could you please stop?
He's a shooter, all right.
But one more thing before I get ready to
stop. Austin Rivers. Oh my God, Austin Rivers. Ooh, Austin Rivers. Why? Because he's Doc's son? Austin Rivers has been like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. Help me, Steven. Please help me. These Austin Rivers fucking people. Austin Rivers would be a nice depth piece, but this guy's talking about Austin Rivers as if he's a fucking superstar.
I'm going to help you by changing the subject, but yet I'm rating you all at the same time because I forgot to even mention this when I was putting it together. I got to get your thoughts on this. JT Realmuto declined the Phillies' initial offer and will be
of course. No, that's the way that was going to happen. You make him the offer because then, at least if he turns it down, you get a draft pick and you get something back in return. But he was never going to. He was never going to.
The thing that you've been talking about for about a month now is I've been hearing a lot of rumors that Theo Epstein is going to be here. What are your thoughts on that one? Because I know,
my thoughts on that.
That's the one you want. That's the one you want.
I'll give him a piece of ownership, bro. Like Middleton can cut him a piece of ownership. Like he was 2% ownership, bro. Like, oh, but you do it. You buy Theo Epstein a new house, a new wife, a new dog, some new kids. You make him part owner. You do whatever the fuck Theo Epstein demands of you. That's how important Theo Epstein is to coming to Philadelphia and being a part of this organization. There has never in the history of Philadelphia sports, of any of the Philadelphia sports, any of them, this would be the most important move ever in the history of Philadelphia sports. Hiring Theo Epstein would be the biggest move in Philadelphia sports history. How about that for a take? That's how important I think it is to bring Theo Epstein in here.
I mean, I definitely think it's important. I don't know if he's actually going to pull the trigger to do it because he's gonna bring something that they don't want here to be held accountable. So it's something we it's a drum that we beat on all the time.
Who doesn't want people to be held accountable though? What are you meaning by that? You don't think the front office wants people to be held?
The front office no, because that means we have to talk to somebody about what we've been doing with all this nonsense.
I can guarantee you Joe Girardi's not taking this job unless accountability was going to be a big conversation that was going to be had about, how we're going to hold people accountable throughout this organization. And I think Bryce Harper wouldn't agree to be the face of this whole franchise unless he felt like, accountability was going to be a thing. I don't know if I buy that. I might have bought that when Kapler was here. I'm not buying that with a Joe Girardi baseball team. Things change real quick when Joe Girardi walks into that clubhouse. Guys are going to get held accountable real fucking quick.
The team can be held accountable, but the front office, there is no accountability.
Fuck the front office. The front office, I don't give a fuck. Joe Girardi's more important than anybody in the fucking front office right now. Like the front, who doesn't want people to be held accountable? Like
Middleton doesn't want people to be held accountable. The reason why we don't have freaking Realmuto under contract right now.
Well, because we don't have a GM right now, but that doesn't mean he's not going to resign here either. And that's another good, like, just because he declined, like, he was always going to decline the qualifying offer. That's the way it works. You make a qualifying offer, the player declines it, and then you start, it doesn't mean that you're still not in negotiations of a possible long-term deal.
I know. I
So,
know.
I mean, I'm not, and I actually feel a little bit more optimistic about it because Real Muto's apparently made it clear that he doesn't want to play in New York. That he'd rather play in Philly than play in New York just because of everything that goes on with playing in New York. So if that's the case, I actually like our chances there to sit here and say, okay, if this drags out a little bit, we still might be okay with our chances. But I've also gone on the record of saying if 5 years and $200 million is the contract that he wants, I'm not signing him to that deal. So as much as I like JT Realmuto, that's the biggest contract for a catcher in baseball history, and it's not even close. And JT Realmuto is a great player, but he's not Pudge Rodriguez. He's not Mike Piazza either in his prime, like he's not Johnny Bench. He's not those guys. So 5 years, $200 million. I'm not just going to sit here.
He could be Johnny Bench. He could be
Johnny Bench. Johnny Bench, when you ask like catcher historians, the people that like they'll tell you Pudge Rodriguez and Johnny Bench are the two greatest catchers of all time. Mike Piazza is the greatest hitting catcher of all time, but I got it on a consensus from anybody that I've ever talked to. But I'm talking about
like how he handles the pitching staff and all that stuff like that. That's meaning like on that level. We're like I'm not sitting there saying like as of right now I think that he could be a Hall of Fame catcher. That's not what I'm saying. He's an absolute all-star.
He's
player.
The best catcher in baseball right now. He's the best catcher in baseball.
Yeah.
But that says more about the other catchers in baseball like than it does about him. Like he's a great catcher, but it's also a downtime for catchers at the moment. Buster Posey's no longer in his prime. Like, if JT Realmuto was playing in 2010, you got to remember there'd probably be about 5 different guys that you'd be like, hey, this guy's just as good of a catcher, as he is. You know what I mean? So, like, it becomes very easy to demand top dollar on a market when you're very clearly the top player. But are you the top player because you're that good, or are you just the top player on the market because, that's what you have around baseball right now? And even, I'm not trying to make that like that might sound like more of a knock than it's supposed to be. The guy's always going to be a great catcher, but to your point, he's never going to be an all-time great. Well, if he's not Pudge Rodriguez, he's not Mike Piazza, he's not that guy. It makes it a lot harder for me to give you 5 years or $200 million and say, yeah, you're the highest paid catcher in baseball history, and you deserve it. Yeah. Go knock yourself out and get that contract from some team in New York. I'll move on and I'll go somewhere else and I'll find a much better option. How many other players I can sign and invest that $200 million into? How many other guys, how many other holes we fill on this team? We're not that far off.
I definitely hear you. We'll see how it all winds up playing out over the rest of the winter as we lead back into spring.
The Theo conversation changes everything, dude. I mean, we're a big pimping organization. Like all of a sudden Theo Epstein comes in here and like the respect that this organization has around baseball, like when the rest of the organization's around baseball, you talk, hey, what do you think of the Phillies? Oh, they're in good shape now. Give them a few years, they're going to be really good. Because this is what Theo Epstein does. Theo Epstein doesn't take on anything long-term where he looks at this and says, it's going to take 5 to 10 years to build. Theo Epstein takes something over, he turns it around rather quickly, it becomes successful, and then he finds a new project to move on to. That's what he did in Boston. It's what he's doing now in New York. So I look at Theo Epstein the same way I look at hiring a Doc Rivers with the Sixers. You bring in Theo, and a Theo Epstein, the idea is we're going to win within the next few years. Not like, okay, what are we going to do to build something here? Like it's fuck a farm system, fuck all that. You're looking to be a winner and win a World Series with like a 3-year window. That's what you're looking to do by bringing in a Theo Epstein. That's telling the whole fan base we're looking to win now. Yeah. And if you were going to hire Joe Girardi, I think the whole point of hiring Joe Girardi is to say we want to win now, not 5 years from now. We want to win fucking now. So go sign a GM that's got the same mindset. And you telling me those two together, those are your two baseball minds running your baseball operations? Theo Epstein and Joe Girardi? Oh, come on, man. You can't sell me on a better baseball. Like you can't sell me on a better 1-2 punch in baseball than those two right there. You really can't.
I feel you, brother. But as we get ready to wrap this one up, another fun one.
What? Wrap it up?
Yeah, I know, right? We're already way past 2 hours.
What, do you got a condom in your pocket?
No.
I don't use condoms. Do you?
Well, I thought we'd already figured out that Cromer was one of our bear backers. So I guess that's something you and him can discuss. But
I mean, I've been in a relationship for 6 years. I might as well be married. The hell's the point of birth control at this point?
All right.
My life's already over. I might as well make it worse by having kids.
All
you know
right.
the pain. You know the pain.
Yes, I do. I do, my friend. I do.
It's like a very joyful type of pain, isn't it? Like it's like one of those like it hurts so bad, but you're like, I love this pain. Like I wouldn't like as much as like it's such a pain. I wouldn't get rid of that pain at all. Like that's the one pain I'll deal with for the rest of my life, right?
Hey man, there's some things that are worth pushing through, regardless if it hurts or not. But again, another fun one, Zach. Big shout out and thanks to Jessica, the Black Widow Borga, for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully she's enjoying the engagement dinner and all that stuff right about now. We'll get her back. We'll get her back on.
A few cocktails deep.
Yeah, she's probably having a good old time right about now. We'll get her back on after. Hopefully, another win on December 10th.
There you go.
Up here in Connecticut, guys.
And shout out to you, Steven. Yeah. The best host in A2D radio of all the shows. I feel like I've got the best host.
I don't know. I mean, I have my flubs. I have my days. We what
We're
do they
a perfect
say?
Combination.
Hey, man. I'll take the love wherever I can get it. I'm not one of the best. I do my job, man.
Dude, we're like Bert and Ernie. That's what we're Bert and Ernie. That's what we are. We're A2D's Bert and Ernie.
Well, I mean that's better than what I've already heard other things be called. What was it? The Ellen DeGeneres.
I've been called a lot worse.
Yeah. I was the Ellen DeGeneres of A2D. No, I'll take Bert and Ernie.
7 years, 185 million per year. I get what you mean. That wasn't supposed to say per year, but 7 years, 185 million. I'm not getting. First of all, no, he's a 30-year-old catcher. He's a great player. I'd feel more comfortable at 3 years and $100 million than I would at 5 years and $200 million or anything like that. I mean, I don't know if he'd be willing to do that, but I'd be more comfortable with like a Dodgers type. Like to give a 30-year-old catcher 6 or 7 years, even if they are club options, is just silly.
Yeah,
it's just not good.
We'll have to see it. Like I said, it's one of these things. He's not like a spring chicken, so it's one of these things where I gotta kind of weigh your options, especially because of
play hardball with him. See how long it drags on. Maybe he decides he doesn't want 5 years and $200 million anymore, and you get him for 5 years and $150 million, and then you consider that a win because you talked him down $50 million.
Then you're able to go get a reliever, bat for your freaking to come off of your bench instead of having freaking 39-year-old freaking guys to rely on to do that type of stuff.
I can go find another starting pitcher instead of Vince Velasquez having the This is going to be the year, Steven. It's going to be 2021. Vinny V's finally going to have that breakout year.
Right, gotcha. But again, another fun one. Me, Mr. Burr here, as we are officially now Bert and Ernie.
We should just rename the show Shenanigans. It's just the name of the show.
Yeah. And speaking of, a lot of new programs dropping. Card Knocks dropped this week. The late night show dropped this week. It looks like there's
Card Knocks. By the way, Card Knocks is not a poker show for you people. Still seem to be confused. That still seem to be confused. It's not a poker show. It's not poker talk, Mr. Brinkman. And it's actually much cooler. It reminded me of whenever anybody used to bring in baseball trading cards to Pawn Stars. Yeah, it's like you got guys that are like that's some fun stuff there. We all remember collecting baseball cards as a kid. How can you not have fun talking about a subject like that?
Yeah, and I think we still have at least two more dropping over the coming weeks, coming to the end of the year and stuff like that. We're also getting close to me being here for a year now, so
whoa!
Yeah, I think it's like
the year-long anniversary. It's going to be
the end of January.
6 years for me. 6 years for me coming up.
Again, guys, make sure you guys are tuning into our other programming. Make sure you guys are showing, all the other shows some love. If you guys, especially our Eagles fans, make sure you're heading over to A2D on Twitter. Again, I'm doing another giveaway. Hopefully, we'll be able to give away this Jaworski signed card this week. Give us your Eagles Giants predictions. Make sure you're give us a screenshot of you following A2D Radio. Hopefully, one of you guys pick a winner. Eagles win, Eagles lose. I don't know. We'll see what happens. If not,
48 zip Eagles.
I'll try to give it out again next week. Why?
You said what?
Why should it be about poker? No. And because it's C, it's a card knocks.
Yes.
But
exactly.
Again, before we get out of here, this show was brought to you by our doc, make him your doc, Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy, LLC, Burlington, Cherry Hill, and Princeton locations. Find them on the web at specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Also, guys, make sure you can get any of your A2D gear over at phillydrinkers.com. Like the shirt, the gaither, all that fun stuff. You don't have a shirt. What are you doing? What are you doing, dude? Shamak.
People didn't need to know that. People they didn't know what that was. It could have just looked like an A2D shirt to them, and now you ruined it and you put it on blast. And Jesus God, you're supposed to roll with me, Steven. I take it back. You're no longer the best.
Matt, make sure you head over to the weekly roundup page. Put your score predictions in. Make sure you screenshot the you're following us on YouTube. Other than that, we need to get a show about gambling. You never know. You talk to Tom and Anthony. It may be
we've got enough degenerates here. We've got enough degenerates at this station. There's plenty of them. We could have a gambling show. Trust me.
All right. Well,
Tom might be a little worried about the legality of it, but
All right. This is another fun episode. I'm Steve. That's Zach Burr. This is another episode of the Weekly Roundup. We'll catch you guys next week, and we are going to have a returning guest next week. We're going to have some more fun. Like I said, keep tuned in. Keep yourself locked in. More programming, more shenanigans from me and Zach and everyone here at A2D Radio. We'll catch you guys.
Definitely more shenanigans from me. Good night, Philadelphia.